Mario Party! Welcome to Identifying Luck for Mario Party 5. It is here we will learn how to best improve our odds of winning at the only Mario Party game that has Card Party. Yeah, the best mode of all. Let's dive into the dream world and take care of the bonus stars. We've got the Coin Star, Happening Star, and Minigame Star. The Minigame Star awards the player that collected the most amount of coins from standard minigames and battle minigames. Yup, battle minigames are now included. It's entirely possible to be crushing your opponents in nearly every standard minigame just to lose a high-stakes battle minigame, thereby deleting your minigame star. Don't get too scared though, only the coins gained from a battle minigame will affect your minigame star. If you lose a lot of coins, then your minigame star will not be affected, unlike in Mario Party 1. Our spaces for this title are Blue, Red, Happening, Bowser, DK, that's a new one, and many capsule spaces, which we'll cover in a later section. During the final 5 turns, there's a chance that all blue and red spaces coin values will be tripled, not doubled, from 3 to 9. There's also a chance for all red spaces turning into Bowser spaces, or all blue and red spaces receiving capsules. A hidden block can appear after landing on a blue space. In this title, there is only one hidden block on the board at a time, and it only contains 10 coins. If you get lucky and land on a blue space with this hidden block, then you'll receive your 10 coins, and the hidden block will move to a different blue space. Here's where things start to change. The Mario Party Legacy channel, you're gonna hear them referenced a few times, made a video discussing hidden blocks. On the section for this title, they confirmed that the hidden block can be found on any blue space, without a capsule on it. That's right, if a blue space is hosting a capsule, then the hidden block will not appear there. They revealed that a player could unknowingly toss a capsule onto a blue space where the hidden block is, thereby moving it to a different unoccupied blue space. The guy even went as far as to only have one unoccupied blue space on the board just to see what would happen, and as one would expect, the hidden block appeared there. But since there were no other unoccupied blue spaces for it to move to, it vanished. The dude couldn't find it anywhere else on the board, no matter what he did. All these shenanigans for a hidden block that only gives you 10 coins. Give me a break. Oh, and by the way, turning off bonus stars will also turn off hidden blocks. They still haven't fixed that. Bowser spaces will cause Bowser to appear, who will gleefully decide which event he wants to put you through. Bowser minigame. Bowser will take coins, stars, or capsules from any losers, while sparing the winners. Bowser revolution. Bowser will take everyone's coins and divide them equally. After all these years, he still hasn't changed. Bowser Shuffle. Bowser will switch everyone's spots with one another. Who knows where you'll end up? Bowser Bonus. In this new event, Bowser lovingly grants a star to the player, taking away one of their stars. Every event has about a 25% chance of being selected. However, if a player without any stars lands on a Bowser space, then Bowser Bonus will not be selected, meaning that every other event now has a 33% chance of being selected. You can use this to your advantage if you have no stars and little coins by purposely landing on the Bowser space. He threatens a minigame, so what? Not like you have much to lose. You might actually hurt the other players if they end up performing poorly. He shuffles everyone around, it could end up putting you in a better position. He divides everyone's coins equally. Well, if you were severely low on funds when landing on the space, then you'll end up with more. Landing on the Bowser space when you're far behind ain't too bad. Keep it as a potential move if things get hectic. Just remember to not land on one if you have a star. Sometimes before Bowser declares an event, Donkey Kong appears and socks Bowser in the face, which will cause Bowser to leave, but not before stealing 10 or 20 coins from the player that landed on his space. As discovered by Mario Party Legacy, this event can only occur if the next space in the path is level with the Bowser space. If not, then the event won't have a chance of occurring since the animation was set to only play when Donkey Kong and Bowser are level. In this title, each board starts with only one Bowser space in the place of a random red space rather than having constant locations on each board. If a player receives a Bowser capsule, Bowser will appear and turn a red space into another Bowser space. And again, there's a chance that one of the final 5 turns event will turn all red spaces into Bowser spaces. Scary stuff. He's finally here, performing for you. It's the first member of, the DK crew. Landing on the DK space will cause DK to appear, who will be more than happy to choose one of 3 events. DK bonus. Donkey Kong lets the player roll a dice block to get coins equal to the amount shown. The possible results are 1, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20, or 25. Yeah, that's right. If you get 1, then you're actually going to end up with less coins than if you had just landed on a normal blue space. DK minigame. All players participate in a minigame where they collect bananas. At the end, Donkey Kong gives everyone coins equal to the amount of bananas that they got by once, twice, or even thrice as he converts the bananas into coins. Not sure how he does that. DK Roulette. Donkey Kong rolls a number on the dice block, and the player must roll a number higher than Donkey Kong's to get a star. If the player rolls lower, or if Donkey Kong rolls a 10, they lose and get nothing. Unless you need to take a certain path, there's no reason not to land in a DK space, right? Well, what if an opponent needs a few more coins to use an amazing capsule or purchase a star? Landing on a DK space risks a DK minigame, which may give your opponent enough coins to do what they want to do. Admittedly, this is a niche scenario, and you want to land on DK most of the time. What's cool is that each event seems to have the same chances of appearing. A 33% chance to roll for a star sounds like a sweet deal. Each board starts with 1 DK space in the place of a random blue space. The duality between Bowser and DK couldn't be any clearer. There are no longer any battle spaces. Instead, battle minigames periodically appear in lieu of a 4-player minigame about 20% of the time from what I've tested. The amount of coins taken from each player is determined via roulette. The possible results are 5, 10, 20, 30, and 50. The low values are more common during the early turns, whereas the high values are more common during the later turns. After the coins have been gathered, all players vote on which of 3 battle minigames they would like to play. Whichever minigame receives the most votes is what's decided. If there's a tie in the votes, as in 2 minigames each receive 2 votes, then the game will choose the minigame that received 0 votes. It's almost like the game is punishing you and your friends for not coming to a decision together. Most of the time, you want to wait and see what the other players vote on before voting yourself. This is because if 1 player votes for 1 minigame and 2 players vote for the same minigame, then you could either vote along with the 2 players to select the minigame they wanted, or you could vote along with the 1 player to select the minigame no one wanted. Consider which minigame you have the best chances of winning in and make your choice. This title has 28 items, referred to as capsules, for players to obtain. These 7 are move event capsules, these 9 are coin event capsules, these 5 are capsule event capsules, and these 7 are special event capsules. They can all be obtained for free by passing capsule machines. Capsules can be thrown onto the board up to 10 spaces in front of them, and the player that lands on the capsule space receives its effects, even if that space is the one they placed. Alternatively, players can pay a fee to use the capsule on themselves. The fee varies by capsule. Yup, instead of walking up to an item shop and purchasing what you want with the coins you earned, you now obtain items for free whenever you pass capsule machines. However, the item you receive is chosen at random. Kind of. Kaito Sage dug into the code for Mario Party 5 in order to discover how the capsule machines worked, and he did an amazing job at it. Let's take a look. Quote, "Capsules in the game are grouped by what I will refer to as buckets. Before the game picks which capsule you'll get, it first picks which bucket it will choose from. I've mapped each capsule to each bucket here." Unquote. You'll notice that each bucket has varied sets of capsules. For example, you won't see all the movement capsules in one bucket. They're fairly spread out. So, did the devs throw in these capsules at random? Not necessarily. You'll notice that the game-changing capsules, such as Chance, Wiggler, and Miracle, are closer to the bottom, whereas the decent capsules, such as Mushroom, Hammer Bro, and Coin Block, are closer to the top. The devs' intentions become apparent when we take a look at Kaito's chart, which lets us know the percent chance of the game picking an item from a certain bucket based on, what do you know, your placing and what turn number the game is on. I didn't expect to see this setup in this Mario Party of all titles. It's almost nostalgic in a way. Don't let the term perimeter part scare you. It's quite similar to what we dealt with before. Perimeter 1 is the beginning of the game, Perimeter 2 is the middle of the game, and Perimeter 3 is the ending of the game. You might expect Perimeter 1 to be the first 5 turns, Perimeter 3 to be the final 5 turns, and Perimeter 2 to be everything in between, but it's not that clean cut this time around. The length of time you spend in each perimeter varies depending on the total turns you're playing. For example, if you're playing a standard 20-turn game, then Perimeter 1 is turns 1 through 4, Perimeter 2 is turns 5 through 14, and Perimeter 3 is turns 15 through 20. But if you're playing, say, a 50-turn game, then Perimeter 1 is turns 1 through 14, Perimeter 2 is turns 15 through 34, and Perimeter 3 is turns 35 through 50. Quite a change. If you'd like to know the perimeters for every game length, then check the description below for the data. Let's read the chart for a standard 20-turn game. If you're in second place and the game's on turn 7, then the capsule machine will randomly decide which bucket to pull from based on this set. Once a bucket is selected, all the capsules in it get shuffled around and one gets spewed out at random. All capsules in a bucket have an equal chance to get selected. But Zoomzag, at the end of the day, it's still random, right? Yeah, but with this info, you'll have a better idea of what kind of capsule an opponent may receive. For example, if the game's nearing the end and you're in first place, then it'd benefit you to prevent fourth place from accessing a capsule machine, since they'd have a 30% chance of receiving a capsule from Bucket E. And we know how spankin' those capsules are. It's this randomness in the item system that necessitates you to use your capsules in the best ways possible, which we're gonna cover starting with the 10 space rule, also known as the probabilities of eventually landing on a particular space, assuming you only rolled 1 to 10 dice blocks. For example, the chances of eventually landing on a space directly in front of you is 10%, since you need to roll a 1 in order to land on it. For a space that's 2 spaces away, you have a 1 in 10 chance of rolling a 2. So that'd be a 10% chance of eventually landing on this space, right? No, dummy! You need to factor in the possibility of rolling 2 1s in a row, since that'll get you to your destination as well. The odds of this happening is 1 in 100, which will add with 1 in 10, giving us an 11 in 100 or an 11% chance of eventually landing on a space 2 spaces away. The same idea works for a space that's 3 spaces away. You've got a 1 in 10 chance of rolling a 3, then you factor in the other possibilities of reaching a 3, like rolling 3 1s in a row, a 2 and a 1, etc., and you'll come back with a 12.1% chance of eventually landing on a space 3 spaces away. I'm sure you've got the idea by now, so let's take a look at the chart, which tells us that we have about a 20% chance of eventually landing on a space 10 spaces away. Why is this important? Because capsule spaces. If there's a dangerous capsule space 10 spaces away from you, then your chances of eventually landing on it are higher than if it was only 1 space away from you. Using movement capsules will help you avoid your fate. If you want to lay down a trap for a threat, then throw your capsule 10 spaces ahead of them to increase their odds of landing on it. Oftentimes I'll see players throw their capsule 1 space in front of their target, which ironically reduces their target's chances for landing on the trap. You've also got to consider your target's capsules. Do they have a mushroom they're planning on using soon? Then throw your capsule a little over 10 spaces to increase the odds of their demise once more. Placing a capsule right after a junction will reduce its chances of being landed upon, because after all, your target can just choose the other path. If you want a better shot at nailing someone, then place your capsule directly behind the junction. This way your target will have a tougher time avoiding it. Although you may be in a situation where players have to take a certain pathway if they want to win the game, in which case, adapt. Mushroom capsule. The affected player will roll 2 dice blocks. If the player rolls double 7s, then they'll receive 30 coins. Rolling a double of any other number will instead yield 10 coins. Mushrooms have always been an easy item to get a hold of, especially in the previous title, but that changes now due to the item system's randomization. The uncertainty of when you'll get another mushroom means that you should have a good reason for when you do use one. Don't gobble one down willy-nilly just cause you can, since there may be a time where an extra dice block will come in handy. If a player lands on a mushroom space, then they'll roll 2 dice blocks on their next turn, which can be cancelled if the player uses any other mushroom capsule. Throwing your mushroom capsule onto a space is an extremely situational move, mainly because letting your opponents receive an additional dice block on their turn will more often than not help them. There are a couple scenarios where it hurt them though. One is if they need to land on a certain space, but can't because the extra dice block causes them to overshoot it. The other is if you're playing on Sweet Dream, where the bridges switch paths every time a player crosses. Placing a mushroom castle before one of these bridges will increase the odds of a player reaching a bridge when it's their turn. This could cause them to take a bad path, and while this scenario may sound tempting, it's difficult to pull off, which is why I recommend you use the mushroom capsule on yourself at an opportune time. Super Mushroom Capsule. The affected player will roll 3 dice blocks. If the player rolls triple sevens, then they'll receive 50 coins. Rolling a triple of any other number will instead yield 30 coins. Same logic with the Mushroom Capsule times 2. Use this golden boy when you need to speed past a lot of spaces. Just make sure it's worth it beforehand. Throwing this capsule onto a space is one of the nicest things you can do for your opponents. I'll leave you to decide whether that means it's a good move or a bad move. Cursed Mushroom Capsule. The affected player will only be able to roll numbers 1 to 5 on the dice block. This may seem like a bad capsule at first glance, but that simply isn't the case. Much like the mini mushroom from Mario Party 4, the reduced dice roll will increase your odds of landing on a desired space 1 to 5 spaces ahead of you. Using this capsule behind a happening space can pay off immensely. It can also be used for stalling, like in Sweet Dream, where rolling low may actually help you if there's a bridge you don't want to take. Warp Pipe Capsule. The affected player will swap places with another player, which is determined by a roulette. Luckily, this roulette is identical to the one from Mario Party 4, which means the same advice applies. To get the pointer to land on the character you want, you must press the A button when it's hovering over the character that's 1 space ahead of your target. So if I wanted to land on the top right character, then I'd press A the instant the arrow is over the bottom character. The pointer does move quickly, but as long as you focus, then you can get it. I believe in you. If an entire minute passes before you press A, then the game will stop the arrow for you. Interestingly enough, it will always stop the arrow on the bottom character. So if you're not confident in your timing and want the bottom character selected, then waiting a whole minute will accomplish just that. Putting your opponents through a minute of nothing may get annoying though, so I still recommend you practice the timing. This roulette functions the same no matter which event it pops up for. You need to consider how helpful swapping will be to both you and your target. What good is taking your target's position when they benefit heavily by taking yours? This decision will vary on a case-by-case basis, but most of the time you want to be the main benefactor from the swap. You could potentially help out an opponent by pointing out a good path for them to take, just for you to swap with them and take it instead. How mean. Placing this capsule, regardless if your opponents know how to time the roulette or not, is just asking for luck to kick you to the curb. Don't chance it. Klepto Capsule. The affected player will be taken to another player's space, chosen by a roulette. Unlike the Warp Pipe, where you need to be careful about moving another player to your space, the Klepto Capsule only moves you, so you can take it easy and simply choose the player whose position you would most like to be in. Always keep in mind what capsules they have before you make a move like this. What if your target has a super mushroom? It may be better to wait until they use it so you can piggyback off the distance they made afterwards. Flying to their space before they use a super mushroom will just end with you eating their dust. Don't place this capsule down for the same reason as the Warp Pipe one. You'll just chance another player taking advantage of a potentially huge move. Bubble Capsule. The affected player will be forced to move 10 spaces forward. During this, the player will lose all of their capsules and cannot choose which direction to take at a junction. Doesn't matter which direction you're holding, the game's gonna do a coin flip when your burnt behind comes upon a junction. If the junction is one of the Sweet Dream bridges, then you'll always take the path with the bridge, because it's not like there's any other path for you to cross. If you arrive at Pirate Dream's Thwomp and Whomp junctions, then you won't get the option to use them and will instead travel the left 2 paths. If that doesn't sound bad enough, you won't be able to access any board events while you're on fire. This includes star spaces, capsule machines, rainbow spaces, and teleportation devices. There are situations where initiating one ain't so bad. Moving forward 10 spaces may help out a bunch, and who cares if it burns up all your capsules if the ones you have aren't helpful, or if you just plain don't have any to begin with. If you use the capsule on yourself, then you even get to roll your standard dice block after already having moved 10 spaces. Of course, landing on the bubble space will simply drop you off on the space 10 spaces away from it. But wait, does this mean that if you see an awesome space 10 spaces away, then you could just use a bubble capsule on yourself to get it? Not exactly, because although you'll land on that space, you won't activate it. For example, let's say it was a blue space. You'll simply arrive at the blue space, but won't receive 3 coins. The same goes if you land on the bubble space. The best spots to place one down in order to screw over your opponents are, as you may have guessed, right before board events. Nothing is more frustrating than coming close to a star just to land on a bubble space and get shot past it. Be wary though, since you can activate your own spaces and they won't play nice to you. Wiggler Capsule. The affected player will be taken directly to the star space. If you use it on yourself, then you'll have to pay 20 coins to be taken to the star space and another 20 coins to purchase the star. That's double the payment for a single star. Try and use this capsule when a threat's getting close to the star. After all, why use it when you're about to get there first anyways? Well, I can think of a few scenarios. What if another player has a capsule event capsule that will take away your Wiggler capsule? Or what if a couple players are bunched up behind a capsule event space? Then you've got to worry about them landing on it. Either way, if you're afraid your precious Wiggler is going to be taken away from you, then call your friend immediately. What if you have enough coins to use the capsule, but not enough to purchase the star? Is it really worth throwing away 20 coins just so no one else gets it? If you've played enough Mario Party, you already know the answer to this question. The answer may vary though. Instead of using the capsule and wasting 20 coins, you could place the capsule on the ground. This is an extremely risky move. So risky that those 20 coins would have to be incredibly vital to your game to even consider giving your opponents a slither of a chance to meet this majestic being. But zoom zyke, wouldn't they have to spend a total of 40 coins too? Funny thing is, no. If you land on a Wiggler space, then you only need to spend 20 coins to move to the star, then you get it for free. This is why placing a Wiggler capsule is one of the worst moves you can make, since it's likely an opponent will eventually land on it. There are scenarios where this move is viable, as there are with most moves. What if you're approaching the end of a game with a Wiggler capsule in tow and enough coins to pay him, but not enough coins to purchase the star? You could throw the capsule in front of you and hope that you land on it instead. As you can plainly see, the Wiggler capsule is a scary one for all players involved. Be wise with it. Hammer Bro Capsule. The affected player will lose 10 coins. Using it on yourself to lose a total of 15 coins is an extremely niche move. I imagine you'd do it if another player is planning to swap coins with you in order to afford a star, so you do this move to prevent them from accomplishing that. Otherwise, you'd place this capsule in a spot where it's likely to harm your opponents. Before a star, possibly? Coin Block Capsule. The affected player will receive 10 coins from a coin block. Using it on yourself will cost you 5 coins, but you'll get back 10 coins for a net profit of 5 coins. You may be tempted to throw it in hopes of netting 10 coins later on, but this move will likely increase your opponent's bank accounts. Just use it on yourself. Spiny Capsule. The affected player will steal 10 coins from another player, chosen by roulette. Using it on yourself will cost 5 coins, sure, but as long as you pick a player with at least 6 coins, then you'll net a profit. Target the player that'll harm your game the most with their current coin count, such as a player that's coming up on a star and has barely enough for it. It's alright to place this capsule down, since the worst that can happen is you losing 10 coins. The other players probably won't know how to time the roulette anyways. Paratroopa Capsule. The affected player will roll a dice block to determine how many coins their opponents lose. The numbers on this dice block are 1, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25. The coins that your opponents lose will not be given to you. Keep that in mind as you decide to spend 10 coins to use this capsule. It's best to go for it when your opponents have a healthy amount of coins. What'd be the point of using it if they were all broke? Worst case scenario is spending 10 coins to use this capsule, only for every other player to lose a single coin. It happens. On the other hand, you may cause them to lose 25 coins each. that also happens. Throw this capsule down if you have a high amount of coins, while everyone else has a low amount. Whereas you won't suffer as much from losing coins because of your supreme coinage, your opponents will be begging to not lose anything if they're low. Bullet Bill Capsule. The affected player will be able to steal 30 coins from any opponent they pass on their next roll. They cannot choose which direction to take at a junction, however. With the 10 coin cost, using this capsule behind a single player is a good move, granted they have a decent chunk of coins. You, of course, would want to nail more than one player with the bullet bill, but get greedy and you'll either never see an opportunity appear or your capsule will somehow get taken from you, so I recommend striking even one player if you can. Much like the bubble capsule, the bullet bill will randomly select junctions and skip all board events. Goomba Capsule. The affected player will swap coins with another player chosen by roulette. The roulette part of this capsule makes it arguably the strongest coin event capsule in the game. With only a 5 coin cost to use it, you can easily swap your low amount of coins with the player's high amount. It's this chance time-esque event that you need to avoid if you're the one with a high amount of coins. So don't place it unless you want the other players to have an opportunity to screw you over. If you're concerned that someone's going to take it away from you and use it themselves, then throw it far away from you and replace it with a different capsule in your possession. Piranha Plant Capsule. The affected player will lose half of their coins. This also includes any remainder. Okay, Zoomzak, enough games. Why would I ever use this capsule on myself? You might be asking. Well, let's say you have a high amount of coins. An opponent has a Goomba capsule and knows how to time the roulette. It'd be better to demolish your coin count instead of letting an opponent cash in with an increased chance of getting the coin star, no less. You'll more often find yourself placing this capsule, which should mainly be done when your coin count is lower than your opponent's. If it's higher, then hold on to your pet plant until it's time. Bomb Capsule. The affected player will lose 20 coins. For this capsule's effect to be initiated, the space it is tossed onto must be passed or landed on 3 times. If you throw this capsule down, then you'll likely be the first one to cross it, since you can only throw capsules in front of you. There's no worry here, as the bomb will only explode when the third person crosses it or lands on its space. But you should take that into account once you decide to bring it out on the field. How many players are behind you? Do they have any capsules to avoid their fate? Questions like these will help you answer whether or not now's a good time to place the bomb. While it may be tempting to place the bomb on a part of the board players have to travel through, something we call the main route, it may be better to place it right after a junction on a route you don't want players to take. Then, when it comes time for someone to pick a path, they'll be hesitant to go where the bomb is. This will be more effective once the bomb's number is at 1, because then the player can't stop themselves from losing 20 coins, unless they don't have that amount to begin with. If you thought placing the bomb was the only way to cause havoc, you'd be mistaken. This capsule's unique attribute is that it's free of charge to use. Doing so will cause you and whoever is on the space with you to lose 20 coins instantly. Yeah, this capsule affects everyone on the space at the time of its activation. If you're willing to take the hit yourself, you can bring down another player's coins, granted they're on the same space as you. This option is best chosen when you losing coins doesn't affect your game as much as your opponent's losing coins. You could use this capsule as a thread while traveling around the board. If you currently have it, someone's at a junction, and one path will cause them to land on your space, then you could let them know you'll delete 20 of their coins if they follow you. Of course, only do this if you don't want them to take the path you're on. Lots of possibilities with this one. Koopa Bank Capsule. When a player throws this capsule onto a space, that space will become a bank space, which functions the same as the banks from previous Mario Party titles. When the player passes one, they'll be forced to deposit 5 coins. However, if a player lands on one, then they'll receive all of the coins in the bank. The bank's total amount of coins is shared among all Koopa Bank spaces. Much like the bomb capsule, place this capsule right after a route that you don't want people to take. They'll be put in a position where they need to consider if a 5 coin cost is worth the path they want to take. However, this opens the doors for players to land on the bank space and cash in. To avoid this, replace the bank space with a different capsule. If, after doing this, there are no more bank spaces on the board, then you've officially locked out the bank from other players. at least until someone receives a Koopa Bank capsule again. Do the coins of the bank reset in this scenario? Nope. If there was a bank space raking it in the first 10 turns, you get rid of it and someone places another one down in the last couple turns, then the bank will still have the same total coin count as before. That leads us to using the bank on yourself. This will not place a bank space below you, but will instead grant you all previously deposited coins in the bank. That's right, for a 10 coin cost, you can take all the coins everyone's been depositing into that sucker. Do this when the bank's coin amount is getting up there in value. It'd be a shame if you cashed in too soon. Careful though, because if another player knows you can do that with this capsule, then they may attempt to rid you of it as soon as possible. Kamek Capsule. When a player initiates this capsule, all players' capsules are shuffled around by Kamek. Which capsules are given to whom is completely random, but the amount of capsules each player receives is quite predictable. Kamek's top priority is to evenly distribute the capsules amongst the players, meaning that if 2 players have 2 capsules each, then all 4 players will leave the event with 1 capsule. If 3 players have 1 capsule and another player has 2 capsules, then Kamek will first evenly distribute 1 capsule to everyone and then give the remainder capsule to the player that initiated the event. If 3 players have 1 capsule and another player has none, then Kamek will always give the player that initiated the event a capsule. All of this means that the initiator of the event will never leave it with less capsules than another player. Sure, they may break even with other players if Kamek can distribute everything equally, but if not, then the initiator is given preferential treatment in the form of either a remainder capsule or not leaving empty-handed. With this knowledge, you'll have a better idea of how many capsules everyone will leave this event with, which can help you in deciding whether or not it's an event you'd like to initiate. Arguably more important than the amount of capsules each player receives is which capsules they receive. This unpredictability is scary and may require you to use a capsule of yours earlier than you would have liked to avoid it getting shuffled around. On the other hand, if you're low on capsules, then initiating this event will beef up your inventory. The main worry of this shuffle is accidentally giving a threat in the game an amazing capsule. Consider if initiating this event is worth the odds of that possibility coming true. Placing this capsule down is just asking for trouble. You'll be in the middle of strategizing your next few moves just for someone to land on your Kamek space and ruin everything. Instead, hold on to it until it's the last capsule in your inventory and then use it when other players currently have capsules. This shuffle will guarantee you a capsule by the end of your turn. Here's a sneaky play. What if only one other player in the game has a capsule, and it's one you really want? If your Kamek capsule is the last one in your inventory and you use it, then there will only be one capsule shuffled, the one you had your eye on. And guess who it goes to? You, because you're the initiator of the event, and Kamek will not let the initiator of the event leave empty-handed. Always look out for this capsule, whether it's in someone else's inventory or on the board. You've got to be prepared to adapt. Mr. Blizzard Capsule. The affected player will lose all of their capsules. Simple but painful, this supersized snowman can pack a punch towards players with great capsules in stock. Do try and remember where your opponents have placed a Mr. Blizzard capsule, unless you want to be without your strategic options for multiple turns. Throwing down a Mr. Blizzard can be risky since you chance landing on the space yourself in the future. It's better to place it when you don't have any capsules you're scared of losing and your opponents do. If you have an amazing capsule in tow and an opponent is readying up to steal it, then using Mr. Blizzard on yourself to trash that awesome capsule may save you some suffering. Magic Koopa Capsule. The affected player will swap their capsules with another player's capsules. The player chosen is determined by roulette. Yet another capsule that becomes all the more powerful due to the almighty roulette. Holding on to this guy until an opponent receives a great capsule is what's recommended. Doubly so if this capsule is the only one in your inventory at the time, since your target will generously give you everything they have while you leave them with nothing. Placing this capsule on the board means allowing your opponents to make big plays. We don't allow that around these parts. Keep it to yourself until the time is right. Ukiki Capsule. The affected player will choose another player that will lose all of their capsules, which are tossed onto random spaces. The Ukiki will only throw to blue and red spaces. If one is already a capsule event, then the capsule Ukiki threw will replace it. If the player chosen has a capsule that cannot be thrown, such as a bone capsule, then it won't affect any space it lands on. Unlike other capsule events that target players, this one doesn't use a roulette, but instead lets the initiator outright choose which player they want to lose all their capsules. It's for this reason that if an opponent has this capsule and is clearly targeting you, that you may want to consider using your best capsule so it isn't thrown onto the board. If you're using this capsule, then consider the consequences of choosing certain players. What if someone has a chance capsule? Are you really gonna have that turn into a space and chance utter annihilation? I leave that up to you, but one thing's for sure, this is definitely a capsule to watch out for. It's one thing to lose your capsules, like with Mr. Blizzard, but it's another for this trickster to make them available to everyone. Lakitu capsule. The affected player will choose another player that will steal a capsule from another player of their choosing. Just like the Ukiki capsule, this Lakitu one lets the initiator outright choose which player they want to steal a random capsule from. For once, you should be grateful that word is in there, random, because if this event let you choose which capsule to steal out of a player's inventory, then we'd have some problems. Much like the plunder chest from Mario Party 3, having a maxed out inventory will decrease your chances of an opponent stealing a capsule you like. If you don't want your opponent to have any chance of stealing your amazing capsule, then use it early. Sometimes the possibility of a threat obtaining something great is too high to chance. I wouldn't blame you for throwing a capsule away to avoid a worst case scenario. Hold on to this capsule yourself until a player obtains one that looks good, then go for the steal. Placing this capsule down would only make it easier for your opponents to target you. We don't want that. Twister capsule. Whenever a player initiates this capsule, the location of the star space changes. The star spaces in this title are much easier to track down than the previous titles since there's only 6 per board as opposed to the 8 we've been used to. If in a game you've marked in your head where 5 of the star spaces are, then you'll know with 100% certainty where the 6th star will appear. This is helpful in general, but with the Twister capsule, you can make your way towards the 6th star space before anyone else, use the Twister to move the star there, and nab it, looking like a prophet. In most cases though, you'll be using the Twister to prevent another player from purchasing a star. But be careful, you wouldn't want to move the star towards an even bigger threat. That'd be a dose of irony. Placing this capsule down is... why? Why would you do that to yourself? Maybe if you're a chaotic evil type you would, but otherwise, why let chance take the reins of fate for everyone in the game? What a sadist. Duel capsule. The affected player will initiate a duel against another player, but first, they'll be given the option to choose what to duel for, coins or a star. The highest amount of coins the initiator can bet can't go over the least wealthy player's total amount. The maximum possible number of coins that can be bet in a duel is capped off at 99, even if both players are above that amount. If the initiator decides to duel for a star, then they have to choose between betting a star of their own or 50 coins. Ah, duels. Good to have you back. I missed you since your absence in Mario Party 4. A basic rule to follow when betting coins is to not bet an amount that would royally screw you over if you happen to lose the duel. For example, if you had a capsule you were planning to use on yourself next turn, then don't bet an amount of coins that would put you below the cost of using that capsule. Unless, of course, there are more important matters to attend to, such as preventing an opponent from having enough coins to purchase or even steal a star. Risk is the name of the game, and it's something you've got to weigh when selecting the amount of coins to bet. Dueling for a star is new to the series at this point, and it certainly ramps up the tension in these duel minigames. What's interesting is that you don't even need to put a star on the line to win one. 50 coins will do just fine, and might I add, that's a deal you should be taking 90% of the time, because if you bet a star and lose, then you just -2'd yourself against your opponent. Remember, not only would they be gaining a star, you'd be losing one as well. If you instead bet 50 coins and lose, then your star counts will remain the same. The downside here is that you may not have enough coins to use a great capsule in your inventory, which is a risk you should consider before initiating the duel. There's also the coin star problem. Will giving your opponent 50 coins give them the coin star? If so, was it even yours to begin with? And if it was, then that's basically the same thing as betting a star. Even then, I would still bet 50 coins because of how wildly players' coin counts change in this game due to the overabundance of coin events and the random battle mini games that pop up. What if you don't have 50 coins to bet? What if betting a star is the only way to take one from your opponent? Whether or not it's a risk worth taking is up to you. A way to help you decide in general is remembering how good you are at the duel minigames versus your target. If you're pretty confident, then duel away. If not, then either duel someone else, don't duel at all, or go for broke. Place a duel space down if you're confident in your dueling abilities. You might end a couple turns with extra stars from players that attempted to take you down. Chain Chomp Capsule. The affected player will be able to steal coins or a star from a selected player. It costs nothing to steal coins. The minimum and maximum amount of coins a Chain Chomp can steal varies depending on the turn number. For example, during the first 5 turns of a 20-turn game, the lowest amount of coins it can steal is around 3, whereas the highest amount of coins it can steal is around 25. What determines the exact number of coins he steals depends on how quickly the victim mashes when prompted. The faster they bash in their A button, the less he steals. Unlike the past titles Booze, where it's much easier to steal during the mid-game and end-game, the Chain Chomp's coin steals seem pretty static throughout the game, meaning you shouldn't be afraid to go for a steal early on, especially because coin steals are free now. This doesn't account for the cost of using the Chain Chomp on yourself though, because if you do, you'll lose 15 coins in the process and will likely either break even or gain a few more coins than what you had before. I'd rather hold on to the Chain Chomp until I had enough coins to steal a star, which by itself costs 30 coins, but of course we should add on the 15 coins. Even then, 45 coins to steal a star from a threat is worth it, especially with how the item system works in this game. You can't purchase the bone capsule. You can only hope that it falls into your lap. This makes the Chain Chomp capsule absolutely terrifying, which you should absolutely take advantage of by holding onto it and stealing a star when a threat's vulnerable. If someone's planning on stealing it from you, then throw it onto a space and either replace it later or keep it there if you're feeling confident you won't get stolen from. Bone Capsule. When a player is attacked by a Chain Chomp, this capsule will activate automatically and protect them from it. Easily one of the best capsules to have in stock. If a threat has one, then they're your target when it comes to stealing a capsule or flat out getting rid of one entirely. This capsule cannot be used on a player or thrown onto a space. It will only be discarded. This is actually a plus. If a threat's targeting you for a steal, then you can simply discard the bone so no one gets it. It's too great of an item to let a threat get a hold of. Miracle Capsule. When a player carries 3 Miracle Capsules, the 3 capsules will be activated automatically, giving all the stars the player in first place has to the player in last place. It's likely you've never seen this event play out in a game before, and I wouldn't blame you due to how ridiculously lucky it is. The Miracle Capsule can be found in Bucket E, meaning that first place has a 0% chance of obtaining it from a capsule machine, no matter what turn it is. That begs the question though, what if first place somehow obtained all 3 Miracle Capsules, whether by swapping capsules or whatever else? Would the game cruelly give all of their stars to last place? Well, the Mario Party Legacy channel strikes back, because the guy there put first place in this exact position, which resulted in Eldstar thankfully sparing him from a horrifying loss. If you're in second or third place and manage to collect all 3 capsules, then first place will still lose all of their stars to 4th place. Yup, they don't go to you, just 4th place. Kinda leaves you feeling cheated, huh? If you're in 4th place and the game's nearing the end, then you have a 7.5% chance of receiving a Miracle Capsule from the capsule machine. While the odds are not in your favor, I do not recommend discarding a Miracle Capsule unless you need to make room in your inventory for capsules that can help you right then and there. If you're in 1st place and see 4th place with even a single Miracle Capsule, then prepare for the worst case scenario. They may very well luck out, and before you know it, the cataclysmic event told by the Ancient Ones will commence. Bowser Capsule. Whenever a player receives this capsule, Bowser will appear and throw it onto a randomly chosen red space, turning it into a Bowser space. This is the least strategic item in the whole Mario Party series, due to receiving it at random and not getting the choice of when to use it. I have nothing more to say about it. What I do have something to say about is Chance Time, which is initiated by using a chance capsule or landing on a chance space. I bet you thought this Chance Time was a simple random roulette that we had no control over, huh? Well, technically speaking, I guess you'd be right. But this Chance Time is harboring a great evil underneath its charming aesthetic. But first, let's start with what's expected. Yes, it's a roulette, but it's not constantly generating random trades as it waits for you to hit the dice block. It first generates a random string of trades, which tend to be 13 to 15 trades long. It then shows each individual trade, and when it gets to the last one, it repeats the same string. Wait, so Zoomzyke, does that mean this Chance Time is timeable? Theoretically, yes, but I think it shuffles too fast to pull off the timing reliably. There's also the issue of trying to remember a string of 13 to 15 trades flashing by quickly. If you're a robot watching this video, then time the roulette as much as you like. If not, then good luck. It's time to take a look at some data that I found quite interesting. These are strings taken from chance times that were activated under wildly different circumstances. One was activated by someone in 4th place at the beginning of a game, another was activated by someone in 1st place at the end of a game. All sorts of different scenarios. Now put on your luck specs, take a good look at these strings, and see if you can find what's odd about them. Feel free to pause the video if you need a moment. Otherwise, I'll reveal the answer right now. All of these strings favor the player on the left. Seriously, there are no trades that give 1 star or 2 stars to the player on the right. Look at the left player's favorable trades. 1 star, 1 star, 2 stars, 2 stars. Meanwhile, with the player on the right, 20 coins, and maybe another 20 coins if they're lucky. Not like that matters though, since the player on the left gets multiple 20 coin trades too. This imbalance is enormous and, dare I say, flat out unfair for the player on the right. Yeah, they might be able to gain stars if a swap stars trade is selected, but the same goes for the player on the left. This chance time is legitimately rigged in their favor. But why? Why is it this way? I have but one theory, and it has to do with the different ways chance time can be activated in this game. If it's done by landing on its space, then the initiator will hit 2 dice blocks, one to decide the player on the left and one to decide the player on the right. Nothing special there. But if one uses the chance time capsule, then the game will automatically place them where? In the left position. It makes sense now, huh? The sneaky developers wanted to give an advantage to the player that uses a chance time capsule, so they put them in the left position and gave them much better trade outcomes than the right position. That's all well and good, but they seem to have made a mistake. This left position bias not only exists when the capsule is used, but also when the space is landed on, which means that whoever gets randomly tossed into the left position will obtain the massive advantage that was designed for a player using the capsule. Talk about an oversight. All this being said, if you get your hands on a chance capsule, you should still consider the worst case scenario, that being the star swap. If you go into a chance time with more stars than your opponent and a star swap trade is selected, then you will lose out big. Consider if this is a risk you're willing to take, and if not, then perhaps wait to use your chance time capsule when you're behind everyone in stars. If you do that, then you don't even have the star swap trade to fear. In this scenario, your opponent would have a 0% chance of getting a star from you. Ridiculous. The only thing they could hope for is some coins via the 20 coins trade or a coin swap, and even then, you might have lower coins than they do, knocking out another trade that could have helped them out. What a stupid chance time! It's this left position bias that makes having a chance time capsule so deadly, which is why you must not let an opponent use one. Careful though, because if you try to get it out of their hands via something like a Kamek event, then you might accidentally toss that capsule into an even greater threat's possession. The best option would be to hit them with a Magikoopa event to swap capsules or a Lakitu event to downright steal the bad boy. I wouldn't place this capsule capsule in a million years. The advantage you get for using it is far too great. Someone would have to be threatening a steal to make me throw it down, and even then, I'd probably act like I did it by accident. Chance times are always a ride to go through, huh? Not all capsules have their own unique icon. Some are shared. This will often cause confusion amongst players during a game since they'll be unsure of which capsule an icon is representing. Let's cover all of them. A mushroom space will bestow either a super mushroom, a cursed mushroom, or a regular old mushroom. If you can choose to land on this space and you don't know which one it is, then you've got about a 66% chance of receiving a mushroom that will grant you at least one additional dice block next turn. If those odds aren't good enough for you and you're cool with taking the other path, then be my guest. If an opponent asks which mushroom is on the space, then you could lie about which one it is to coerce them into landing on it, or on the flip side, scare them away from landing on it. A move event space will affect your placing on the board through either a warp pipe or klepto capsule. Either way, you'll have the roulette to deal with, so you can adapt to whichever one pops up. A coin event space will affect a player's coins, either through gaining coins or losing coins. The events that share this icon are Hammer Bro, Coin Block, Spiny, Paratroopa, Bullet Bill, Goomba, and Piranha Plant. I am not kidding when I say that remembering what coin event was on what space can mean the difference between a win and a loss. I've seen players go, what's on that coin space? Is it a coin block? They'll take their chances by landing on it, and bam, Piranha Plant. Half their coins gone, lost the lead, lost their house, everything. Please try and remember which capsules have been placed where. If you really don't know which coin event is on a coin event space, then it wouldn't hurt to ask your opponents what it is. Who knows, maybe you're playing with honest folks, or maybe you're playing with people who've watched this video. If you don't want to do that, then consider how each coin event would affect your game. If it's a Goomba event, is there anyone good to swap coins with? If it's a Piranha Plant event, will losing half my coins lose me the game? Frankly, the Piranha Plant event is the main thing you want to avoid. A Babam space represents the Babam event. A bank space represents the Koopa Bank. A capsule event will affect a player's capsules, either helping or hindering the player. The events that share this icon are Kamek, Mr. Blizzard, Magikoopa, Ukiki, and Lakitu. I'd argue that remembering the locations of the capsule events are more important than that of the coin events. The possibilities of landing on this space are too vast. You might lose all your capsules, shuffle everyone's capsules, get the option of stealing a capsule from someone, etc. To avoid this chaos, you've got to keep an eye out for which events are where, but of course there may be times where you need to go in blind. 3 of the 5 capsule events collectively have a high chance of removing your capsules from your inventory. These are the Kamek, Mr. Blizzard, and Magikoopa events. If you have an amazing capsule you want to hang on to and you have the option of landing on an unknown capsule event space, then it's probably best to steer clear. If you don't have any good capsules or capsules period, then there's not much to fear with these capsule event spaces. You might actually benefit from them via the Lakitu or Kamek events. The Twister space represents the Twister event. The Duel space will cause a duel minigame to occur. The Chain Chomp space will summon a Chain Chomp, and the Chance Time space will initiate Chance Time. I wish this title gave every capsule its own unique space, but alas, a lot of them share the same one. It's up to you to keep track of them, unless you want to end up suffering from an event that could have been avoided. For the most part, when you start a game, you may notice that some of the spaces are already capsule spaces. In this case, it's best to learn what they are earlier instead of later, when you have more to lose. Once 5 turns remain, the final 5 turns event will commence. Bowser hosts the event. He first gives the current standings as usual, then brings the player in last place to spin a roulette. Depending on the result, the board will have one of 4 new rules for the rest of the game. All blue and red spaces coin values are tripled from 3 to 9, all red spaces become Bowser spaces, all blue and red spaces become capsule spaces, existing capsule spaces are overridden, and 5-star spaces are on the board at all times. All 4 rules will be present on the roulette wheel, but the 5-star spaces rule will appear about half as often as the others. Guess they wanted it to be rare. The blue and red spaces coin values tripling instead of doubling was a change that was made from the last Mario Party to this one. Losing 9 coins when landing on a red space might actually hurt your game if your coin count ain't doing too hot. It could prevent you from affording a star or using a capsule when you need to. If you're low on funds when this rule is put in place, then avoid red spaces to keep your strategic options open, unless you need to take a certain path, of course. All red spaces becoming Bowser spaces is scary due to the Bowser bonus event, which deletes one of your stars. There's only a chance this event will be the one he chooses, but even a chance is too high for you to risk losing a star. Avoid Bowser spaces if you can, and if you can, then just hope he's merciful, or that DK comes in and saves you. All blue and red spaces becoming capsule spaces is the most downright insane rule in Mario Party history. I'm almost willing to bet that the developers purposely made certain capsules share icons just so they could get the most chaos out of this rule. When traversing the board while it's in this state, you must consider what each event may be lurking under a space you can land on, because if you don't, then you'll be sorry. Look out for the spaces your opponents land on as well as your own so you can start keeping tabs of which capsule event is which on each space. 5-star spaces being on the board at all times makes it pitifully easy to keep track of where the next star will spawn, since it'll always show up on the only star space that isn't currently active. This rule will heavily benefit those that have movement capsules and enough coins to purchase multiple stars. Watch out for these players and make sure they don't blitz ahead. With a rule like this, it can happen quite easily. When a player lands in the same space as another player during the final 5 turns, a duel minigame is initiated before the space landed on is activated. That last detail is crucial. What if during the final 5 turns you land on the same space as another player and that space is a Goomba space? The game requires that you complete the duel first and activate the space second. So, if you bet all of your coins and happen to lose, all you've got to do is time the Goomba space's roulette, select the player you just dueled, and then you'll get all your coins back and then some. Sneaky moves like this can go a long way if you scope them out in the moment. Keep your eyes open. Before we move on to the board section, you should know that most of my advice will pertain to the board itself. If I were to cover every possible capsule placement on every space, then we'd be here forever. Every board you play on will have its own unique layout of spaces due to these capsules, and that's something you need to adapt to yourself. If there's a terrifying capsule space that you don't want to land on, then replace it. If someone says they're going to replace one of your capsule spaces, threaten to steal a star. There's many different situations you'll run into, but at the end of the day, you've got to use the tools at your disposal to take the lead. Now, it's about time we take a trip to Toy Dream. Here's the space lineup. Out of all the boards, it has the least amount of red spaces at 6. Do you like star spaces? I like star spaces. Let's remind ourselves once more how the star space works. On most boards, when you buy a star, the star space itself will move to another random location. However, only certain spaces have been programmed to host a star. We refer to these spaces as star spaces, and normally only one is active at a time. When a star space isn't active, it'll look like your average blue space. Let's say you're smack dab in the middle of a game, as people do. You remember that these 4 star spaces have been deactivated, and you notice that the current active star space is this one, right here. With that being the scenario, I ask you please, I am new to this series, where will the next star pop up? Right here? I'm sure you're right, since all the other spots are either deactivated or will deactivate after its star has been purchased. As I said before, this title only has 6 star spaces per board instead of the usual 8, making it a lot easier to keep track of them. Landing on the happening space in front of either train station gives the player the opportunity to ride the train to the other side. We'll call it the Excess Express, collecting coins released from the engine along the way. A total of about 26 coins can be obtained during this event, which are pretty easy to grab as long as you time your jumps properly. If you miss a coin, then stop jumping for a brief moment before jumping once more. I've seen players try to correct their mistakes by attempting to jump faster, but it's easier to just wait a sec. Check out these star spaces. One was placed after each train stop. You could potentially land on one of these happenings, grab tons of coins, and end up right next to the star. Although rare, this could happen within the first couple turns. If neither of these stars are active, then you should consider whether traveling to the other side of the board is worth it. I know you'd get a lot of coins from the event, but there are times where your position on the board is worth way more than a bucket of coins. What if there are multiple players in front of you and you have a bullet bill capsule? Taking the train may grant you around 20 coins, but that's nothing compared to stealing coins from multiple players. One of the toys is based on Mecha Bowser. It shoots any player that stomps on the happening space in its mouth back to start via a cannon. This event could be a bummer if you wanted to make your way upwards, but hey, at least you get to visit a capsule machine soon. You've also got a chance to land on the train happening, which can boost your happening count even higher. If you've got the option of landing on the Mecha Bowser happening on this left route versus the blue space on this right route, then I'd stick with the happening. Not just because you'd be helping out your happening star, but also cause, frankly, this route sucks. Seriously. The only star space on this route is down here after you finally loop back around to the main route, and if you were aiming for it, then Mecha Bowser would bring you closer anyways, with an added happening to your account no less. But let's say you were aiming for this star and couldn't land on the Mecha Bowser space. You would have to travel 24 spaces to reach it. Surely one of your opponents will make it there before you, right? If not, or if there's a capsule space you want to land on, then I guess you can take one of the lamest routes in the franchise. At least it looks pretty. Oh, this happening space? It's no big deal. It'll just send you to a random space on the board. How fun. Okay, it's not any random space. For my testing, it seems to only send you to blue and red spaces, nowhere else. If there weren't as many places it could launch you to, then maybe we could use this as a part of a strategy, but there are too many outcomes for it to be that useful, at least in terms of movement. It's still happening, so hey, a plus to the happening count doesn't hurt. Other than that, I can't see myself trying to land on this space. Maybe if I need to flee from someone, hope I get launched to a better spot. You just don't know what you're gonna get, which I guess fits with the present aesthetic it has. Players who land on one of the happening spaces on top of the blocks will cause toy soldiers to blast down those blocks, knocking them to a lower section of the board, right here to be exact, every time. I'm not sure what the point of these happenings are. Maybe the developers wanted to make it more difficult to reach the top of the board? If that was their goal, then I guess they succeeded? I just wonder why it was designed like this. If you're at this junction and have 3, 4, or 5 spaces left, then taking the top path will bring you to the right path anyways. Weird. At least it's good for boosting your happening count. That's a plus. There aren't any gates to talk about anymore, but let's take a closer look at these junctions, shall we? Oh, but first, allow me to present the closest star spaces in Mario Party history, I think. They're only 3 spaces away from one another. That's crazy! It's entirely possible you've played a game where someone nabbed this star, followed by this star right afterwards. Not sure why they didn't move this star further up. Then I'd actually care about this route I was dissing earlier. Whatever, this right path will lead you to a good old capsule machine, followed by a star space. The capsule machine alone makes me choose this route over the other one, but there's also the fact that it leads to yet another star space and capsule machine. That's right, this dumb route in the middle is worse than its 2 competitors. Get it together, man! The junction after the car lets you go left or right. The right path has a capsule machine and star space, as I said before, and is 7 spaces long. The left path is 6 spaces long. That's it. The path being 1 space shorter isn't enough, since receiving a capsule holds far more value than saving a single space. And that's not even counting if a star were to appear here. There is a possibility that a Bowser space will spawn here though, but remember, it can go to any red space on the board, so there's a decent chance this space will stay red. If it is a Bowser space, then select this path at your own discretion. Hopefully you've rolled high enough to move past him. Save your mushroom and super mushroom for when you need an extra boost to get past the block happening spaces. If you want to land on one of them, then use a cursed mushroom for increased odds. If you really want to make this route painful, then place the bomb capsule there. Oh, or maybe a bubble capsule so players might zip past the star. You can get pretty evil with these plays. Overall, Toy Dream is full of happening spaces that love to move you around. Watch out for them and you'll be the victor soon enough. Now entering Rainbow Dream. Here's the space lineup. Out of all the boards, it has a pretty average space layout. Here are its 6-star spaces. This board might scare you since there are no junctions to be seen, but don't worry, it takes a different approach in the form of rainbow spaces. Whenever players get to one of them, they're asked if they want to cross it for 5 coins. If paid, a rainbow appears for them to go to the next area. You can tell where you'll be dropped off by the raised platform. Don't let the name Rainbow Space throw you off. They're kinda like junctions that you have to pay 5 coins for. There's another difference, but we'll get to that later on. There's also a wind gondola that can be used if a player lands on one of the 4 happening spaces located near it. Like with the train happening from Toy Dream, you can reject the ride if you prefer your current placement. The happening space near the generator gives players a chance to get some capsules by tapping the A button to run faster on the battery wheel. How many capsules you receive is determined by how many lights are lit by the end. 0 to 2 lights will grant no capsules, 3 to 4 lights will grant 1 capsule, 5 lights will grant 2 capsules, and 6 lights will grant 3 capsules. The lights you lit up will flicker at the end to show you what level you reached. If you already have 3 capsules when landing on this event's happening space, then you won't be allowed to gain capsules. If you have 1 or 2 capsules when starting it, then you can only gain up to your max amount. The capsules are given at random. You could receive awesome capsules one time just to receive crappy ones the next. Who knows? Do your best to button mash here. Free capsules are no joke. This ability for players to get this many capsules from a single event means you want to hold on to your Kamek, Magic Koopa, and Lakitu capsules in case they receive anything game-changing. Landing on the happening space in the rainy area sends the player and the players on the 2 spaces next to it on a current that takes them back to the start. If either one of the 2 spaces next to this happening space are capsule spaces before the event, then they will still be capsule spaces afterwards. They won't go away. You may want to shoot for this happening using a cursed mushroom if you're desperate to go back to the southern cloud, possibly for one of the 2 stars. The happening space on the sunny area makes 3 rainbows appear. The player chooses one, then slides down to the area the rainbow led, collecting about 15 coins along the way. This event is evil, because you don't know which rainbow leads where. You take the right rainbow and how was I supposed to know it was gonna take a turn like that later down the line? You might be thinking, oh, then just memorize which rainbow leads where, which is a good thought, but here's the problem. There are 3 variations of this event, where each rainbow leads to a different cloud. And guess what? You can't tell which variation is which because the beginnings of the rainbows all look the same, making this a guessing game, or so the developers thought. As it turns out, the beginnings of the rainbows are different between these 3 variations. Variation 1's middle rainbow is the only one that touches the corner of this object. Variations 2 and 3 come close but do not touch the corner. The end of the purple part of Variation 2's right rainbow is about level with this corner, whereas the end of the purple part of Variation 3's right rainbow hangs a little lower than this corner. In addition, Variation 2's rainbows are less see-through than Variation 3's rainbows. This is best shown when comparing how visible this line is between each variation. Notice how it's a little harder to see the line with Variation 2 as opposed to Variation 3, where it's a little easier to make it out. Easy, right? This is completely possible to tell between the variations. Moving on, here are the spaces a rainbow will drop you off at for each cloud. And now I'm gonna list off which cloud each rainbow takes you to for each variation. Variation 1, left to right, middle to left, and right to middle. Variation 2, left to left, middle to middle, and right to right. Variation 3, left to middle to right, and right to left. Hope you got all that, cause it's gonna be on the final exam. The happening space at the snowy area gives players a chance to win coins by ground pounding the seesaw a snowman is on to lift it as high as they can. The snowman then comes back down, sending the player upwards where the coins are. The harder the ground pound, the higher the jump, and the more coins they win, for a maximum of 20. To get the most out of this event, you need to hold the A button to jump high, and then quickly press A again when you're at the apex of your jump. It's alright if you test your jumps before ground pounding, since jumps alone won't cause the snowman to fly up. Don't pay coins to visit another cloud just cause you can. Sometimes it's a better move to stick with the current cloud you're on, whether cause you need another capsule, a star spawn there, or if there are some good capsule spaces you want to try landing on. Unlike Toy Dream, there aren't any happening spaces in a row, so using the cursed mushroom to farm them isn't as useful here. But if you really want to take your chances on one, then I won't stop you. Using a twister when the star is currently on the western or eastern cloud will have a 100% chance of moving the star from the cloud it's on. This is because there's a star imbalance. There are 2 star spaces on the northern and southern clouds, with only 1 star space on the eastern and western clouds. This makes looping these clouds not as recommended as the other 2, since you're likely to miss out on more stars this way. Hold on to a warp pipe until you're in a bad position and your target's in a great one. Getting dumped onto a cloud without a star space, or one that contains harmful capsule events, can deal a significant blow to one's game. The shortest loop around is the eastern cloud at 15 spaces without a star spawn and 14 spaces with. If you're looking to cause chaos by landing on dastardly capsule spaces, then place them here so you have the highest chance of landing on them within a short time span. But Zoomzite, can't they just be replaced? Yeah, but only by players who are on that cloud. Another unique property about these rainbow spaces is that since they aren't treated as junctions by the game, you can't throw capsules to another cloud no matter how close you are. This makes it impossible to replace harmful capsule spaces before you reach another cloud, which you should absolutely keep in mind before making the journey. I'm sure I don't have to tell you to check the map for danger, right? Overall, Rainbow Dream's divided landscape make for some interesting plays. Granted, you can scope them out on your turn. Arr, matey, you thought pirates were done with in Mario Party 2, but they're back with Pirate Dream. Here's the space lineup. Out of all the boards, it has the most amount of blue spaces at 56. Here are its 6 star spaces. Landing on a happening space on the mine track causes a boulder to come rolling out of the mine, chasing players in its way off the tracks and onto this space. Yup, you could be miles away from the person that landed on this happening space and you will still get affected by the event as long as you're in the path of the boulder. Since there aren't any junctions before this happening, players will often get stuck here, constantly rolling back again and again. It doesn't help that all 4 players must pass through either. If you have a curse mushroom, then trying to purposely land on this happening in order to hurt another player's placement is absolutely viable. You'd be moving them from one side of the board to the other, and if they loved where they were, then they're gonna feel some heartache. Landing on one of the happening spaces on the waterfall causes it to give way, and the player falls down the waterfall to this space in front of the pirate ship. It doesn't matter which of the 2 happenings you landed on, you'll end up on the same space. If you need to stay on the top path, then encountering this event will throw your game in the garbage. Use a mushroom or super mushroom to avoid it as best you can. Oh, the bottom path? I wouldn't worry about it too much. In fact, it's actually great to land on the happening here no matter what your situation is. That's because where it drops you off isn't any further than where you would have been otherwise. And you get a happening boost too. There's no need to use a mushroom or super mushroom to avoid this event. Landing on the happening space near these holes will cause Monty Mole to pop out and give players a chance to dig for coins. Granted, they pay him a 5 coin fee. All they have to do is button mash A to dig out coins with the pickaxe. I don't care if you're a terrible button masher. Always pay the fee to encounter this event. You will end up with more coins than you had before. If you're really fast, you might net around 15 coins. Not bad. The happening space on the pirate ship makes players jump into its cannon and blast off to a space with a cannon sign next to it. There are 3 of these cannon spaces, as we'll call them, on the board. One is hanging off this cliff, one is after the wooden bridge, and one is on the boulder's pathway. If you're at this junction and have the option of landing on this happening space, then you could potentially nab a faraway star quicker than other players. For example, what if the star is currently here or here? Launching to the bridge cannon space would set you up nicely. What if the star is here again or back here? Launching to the cliff cannon space would be great. The boulder cannon space isn't super close to a star space, but it does grant you a capsule machine to stock up, so I can't be too harsh on it. Taking the cannon is a risky move that you should only consider if at least 2 out of the 3 cannon spaces would be a better spot than where you would land had you taken the left path, which leads to 1 space behind the Thwomp junction. Speaking of which, hey, Thwomp and Whomper board NPCs, glad to have you back. Sadly, this is the only board in the game that they're on, but we'll make the most of it. Thwomp gives players a lift to a higher part of the board for 10 coins. For the same price, Whomp lets players use the ladder he is blocking. You cannot view the map after deciding to talk to either Thwomp or Whomp. I cannot tell you how many times players, myself included, have talked to one of these guys just to say, wait, which path will they take me to? And then end up making a bad decision because of it. View the map before you talk to either one so you can see which path paying them will lead you to. This board's layout can mix you up a bit, it doesn't hurt to check. Thwomp's path is solid if you're looking to land on the top happening space in order to boost your happening count, or if the stars spawn next to the bridge. Whomp's path is solid if the stars spawned right on it, or if you're looking to land on one of the boulder happenings. Potentially a huge move since the boulder will roll you towards the start, putting you in position to take a star that spawned here, here, or here. You'd also be next to a capsule machine, which is always good. Refuse both of them if you'd rather stick to your current path. Maybe the stars spawned up here, or you rolled high enough to land on the Monty Mole happening. I know 10 coins ain't cheap, but these guys can be of great assistance when traveling the board. That's why placing a bubble capsule before them to force players to skip them is evil. Placing a bomb capsule after one of their pathways couldn't hurt too, as it'll make players even more anxious when making their choice. This is one of the larger boards, so warp pipes and kleptos will help you out a bunch as you steal the positions of other players. Coin event capsules that take away coins must be avoided here. It'd suck if you needed to take either Thwomp's route or Whomp's route just to not have enough coins for it. Overall, Pirate Dream's dual junctions with the Thwomp and Whomp along with the cannon happening space make this board a strategist's joy. We're diving into the Undersea Dream. Here's the space lineup. Out of all the boards, it ties for the least amount of happening spaces at 5. Here are its 6-star spaces. If a player lands on the happening space on the sunken ship, a dolphin swims out and forcefully takes the player to this space. This could do you some good, especially if the stars spawned on the right side of the board. The main issue is that you don't get a say in the matter. What if the star's on the bridge or on the high point up here? Getting dropped off at this space will make it more difficult to reach those spots. If you'd like to avoid getting screwed over by this space, then use your mushroom or super mushroom to blitz past it. Don't worry about saving either capsule to skip any other movement happening space, cause the rest of them are optional. The happening space next to the whale allows players to be blasted, as it says, just before or after the star. In more definite terms, it'll send you one space before or after the star. For my testing, you have a 50-50 chance of either one happening. Yeah, I was hoping that the odds would be stacked towards landing one space before the star, but nope, it's a coin flip. There's only one star space that this event will bring you closer to, regardless if it places you one space in front of the star or one space behind. That is, this star space on the metal platforms. All you need to do is take the following junction down and make a loop around to reach the star. If you land on the whale happening while this is the current active star space, then go for it, unless there's a player already close to the star, of course. If this isn't the current star space, then look for how close the other players are to the star. If they're a bit far away, then the event might be worth risking so you can make the snag. I'd better not see you do the event if the star is currently here or there. That'd be an interesting move, to say the least. The happening space next to the Cheep Cheep on the right side reef lets players get a chance to earn a capsule or an old boot from one of the shells, which is worth nothing. This event blows. Yeah, you might get a random capsule. That's not what I think sucks about it. I just don't like how it's deceitful. What do I mean? Well, as you can see here, the game seems to be constantly randomizing each shell's result of either a boot or a capsule, kind of like a dice block. I guess I wish 2 out of the 3 clams were capsules and 1 was garbage, which it'd show you afterwards. It's alright though, you still get a decent chance of walking away with the capsule here, so that's something to be happy about. The happening spaces next to the logs on either side of the board give players a chance to ride a manta to the other side of the board, and collect coins along the way. You can get as many as 20 coins through this fairly easy event. All you have to do is move your analog stick up and down on your leisurely ride. Don't overthink it. You do need to consider if traveling to the other side of the board is good for you though. Those 20 coins may be tempting, but what if there's a star close by? Taking the manta ray will bring you further away. On the flip side, it might bring you closer to a star that was far away, which would be nice. Check the map and assess your situation before saying yes or no. It's junction time. The first one you'll encounter comes right after a capsule machine. You'll likely see yourself taking a right here, as that'll lead you to nearly all the star spaces on the board. I say nearly because there's a slight chance that this western star space will be active. Only go for it if you know you can get it. If not, then take a right so you can prepare for the other ones to spawn. Placing a bubble capsule on the red space before this junction is cruel, because if there's a star here, here, or here, then the bubble space could make them skip it. The junction before the bridge has a path that'll loop you back to the starting section, which ain't half bad since the capsule machine's there. Take this loop if you're in dire need of another capsule, or if the star spawned on the left section of the board. The junction after the bridge has a path leading up to the whale happening, a star space, and a capsule machine. That might tempt you into choosing this path every time, but it's about 5 spaces longer than the right path. If you're looking to make quick progress around the board, take the latter. If not and you want a capsule, or if the star spawned up here, then take the former. The junction before the stones has a path that'll loop you back around the bottom right section of the board. This place does have 2 happenings, which is nice, but there's no capsule machine to encounter and there's only 1 star space. I wouldn't use this path often. Overall, Undersea Dream is a pretty simple board. There honestly aren't as many strategic moves to make as with other boards in the series. If you're not confident in your strategic capabilities yet, or you're looking for a board that won't overwhelm with tons of options, then this is your place to go. We've blasted away to Future Dream. Here's the space lineup. Out of all the boards, it's average alongside Rainbow Dream. Sorry buddy. Here are its 6 star spaces. Hey, speaking of Rainbow Dream, it looks quite similar to it, huh? Don't let that similarity fool you though, because traveling on this board is quite different. For starters, there are 3 islands instead of 4. The main method of traveling between these islands, which I'll now refer to as stations, is through the teleporters. When you approach one, you'll be asked if you'd like to take the teleporter for no additional cost. Hey, this really is the future. The left station's teleporter is linked to the middle station's left teleporter, and the right station's teleporter is linked to the middle station's right teleporter. They're color-coded in case you forget. But yeah, there are no linked teleporters between the left and right station. Kinda sad, huh? Don't worry though, there's a taxi happening space on each of these stations that'll let you take a quick trip over. The difference between this movement happening and many others in this title is that you don't get a say in the matter, and you have to pay the fee, which is 10 coins in this case. Normally when payment is involved, you get the option of saying no, but here they just take your money and yeet you to the other side. This really is the future. If that has you feeling down, then try out the rocket ship happening over at the left station. In this game, one controls the levitation of their ships to try and collect coins from UFOs. Holding A will bring your ship higher, whereas letting it go will bring your ship lower. If played right, you can earn about 20 coins, much like the other coin happening spaces. The 2 happening spaces in a row next to this robot on the right station will activate a slot machine minigame. If played skillfully, players may earn special capsules by lining up the slots. A mushroom capsule is the consolation prize. The pattern for each slot is the same each time. Memorize them and you'll easily line up the 3 capsules you want in no time. This is a powerful event, since you could potentially receive a Twister, Duel, Chomp, or Chance capsule from this machine. The Mushroom Capsule consolation prize ain't half bad either. The happening spaces on the central platform are next to 3 rocket ships, which can be used by landing on the spaces. Each rocket takes players to one of 4 launching pads found on the left and right stations. You might think that each of these rockets correlates to a certain station, but nope. They all have the same chance of landing on each landing pad. I wouldn't rely on these happenings to move myself around the board since the teleporters are right there. It'd have to be a pretty desperate situation for me to even consider it. Using a curse mushroom before these happenings will likely land you on one, which is good for working towards the happening star. But your placement is probably more important. You cannot throw capsules between stations, making it difficult for you to protect yourself from harmful capsule spaces if you're planning on taking a teleporter. If you like causing chaos, then this might be good for you, since you can place all the capsules you want without as much worry about them getting overridden. You've probably noticed these hovering platforms. Taking the left one will drop you off here, and taking the right one will drop you off here. Very simple splits in the path that can mean a lot. If you take the left platform, then you'd be skipping a capsule machine, a star space, and a happening space. That's a lot. Granted, you may want to skip the taxi happening space in case you want to stay on the left station. This platform path will also save you about 3 spaces, so it's not totally useless. I'm just concerned about skipping the capsule machine. Most of the time, you do not want to skip these guys. As said before, obtaining an additional strategic option will tend to outweigh saving spaces. The right platform will bring you to a taxi happening space and a star space. If the latter is active, then yeah, take this platform. If not, then I wouldn't take it unless you need to land on the taxi happening or something else that's useful. The capsule machine is placed after the paths converge this time, so no matter which path you choose, you'll receive a capsule. Overall, Future Dream has some nifty ways to get around. Combine that with movement capsules and you'll be blasting off everywhere. I hope you're hungry. We're entering Sweet Dream. Here's the space lineup. Out of all the boards, it has the least amount of blue spaces at 45, ties for the least amount of happening spaces at 5, and the least amount of total spaces at 59. One of the smallest party mode boards in the franchise. Here are its 6-star spaces. The major feature of this board is the 2 shortbread bridges. That's kind of fun to say. They collapse if a player crosses them. When this happens, another bridge forms in a different direction. A bridge won't break if a player crosses it while under the effects of a bubble capsule. Good to know. These bridges can be annoying. You will eventually get forced down paths you don't want to go on unless you have movement capsules to correct your position. I'd say that out of every board in this title, this is the one where movement capsules are the most vital. Hey, that kind of rhymed. Use a mushroom or super mushroom to blitz past a bridge before an opponent. Use a curse mushroom to stall out your opponent and have them take the bad route instead of you. Use a warp pipe or klepto to swap or bring yourself to another player's position. All of these capsules will find great use here. Let's not have them getting stolen or shuffled around. Capsules aside, be careful when choosing which direction to take at these 2 junctions. It's a big deal to change which bridge is active, and you don't want to help out a threat. If you don't want to take the bad bridge in this scenario, then you don't have to. Simply loop back around if you're at the right junction, or make your way to the other set of bridges if you're at the left junction. Triggering happening spaces found on cake, so this one, and that one, will slice the part of the cake the player is on and take them to this space. I'd only be happy to encounter this event if either of these Western star spaces are active. If not, then I'd feel like my time was wasted. There aren't any junctions close by, and the capsule machines are a ways away. While normally I'd recommend you to mushroom or super mushroom past these kinds of happenings, you should still hold on to those movement items because of how much more useful they'll be when dealing with the bridges. The happening space next to the small cake at the bottom right part of the board activates a board minigame. Players throw candy balls into the cups on the cake to score coins. Each cup filled is worth 5 coins, making 25 coins the max amount that can be won here. For the green cup, jump and shoot when you're at the apex of your jump. For the red cups, jump a little before they're aligned with your character and immediately shoot. For the blue cups, button mash A as soon as they're aligned with your character so you'll shoot quick and low. A player that lands in the happening space at the top part of the board forces the other 3 players to come and throw a party with them. The player spins roulette to see what they'll take from the other players. Capsules, 1 from each, coins, 10 from each, or a star from each player? What? If this event was luck-based, where you had a 33% chance to make every player give you a star, then maybe I'd be a tiny percent cool with it on a Saturday at 3:24 p.m. But no, you're telling me that it uses a roulette wheel? Granted, this one works differently from what you're used to since the pointer doesn't slide nearly as far, only 50 degrees, meaning to get what you want, which isn't a difficult decision here. All you've got to do is press A when the pointer's hovering over the second half of the space before the one you want, or the first half of the space of the one you want. But that's all beside the point. Let me try and explain to you how busted this event is. The Big Blue Boo happening event from Mario Party Birthday Bash can also take a star from each player, but first you've gotta summon him, which is only possible if you're the 3rd player to have landed on one of his hard to reach spaces. Only then will he appear. But that's not all. In order to steal a star from each player, you need to pay this guy 150 coins. Now, let's redirect our attention back to this monstrosity of an event. You simply land on the happening space once, time an easy roulette, and bam! You've single-handedly stolen a star from every human being on Earth. Why did the devs think this was okay? Oh, in order to reach the happening space up there, players need to cross one of the fun-filled shortbread bridges, making this quite Oh, shut up! It's easy to get here. I take back what I said earlier. There is no reason to use a cursed mushroom for anything other than attempting to land on this happening space. You'd think that this event alone would be the only positive thing the devs put on this path. But no, let's throw a star there too. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, and to put some extra icing on the cake, let's have this route drop you off right next to a capsule machine. Bowser Nightmare. Here's the space lineup. Out of all the boards, it has the most amount of red spaces at 12, with potential to be even more, the most amount of happening spaces at 9, and the most amount of total spaces at 76. Here are its 6 star spaces. The happening spaces at the middle left and middle right sides of the board cause Bowser to come out for a walk to the other side. During his stroll, he turns all blue spaces in his path into red spaces, and crushes any player in his path, making them lose 10 coins. No capsule spaces get removed due to this event. The path he takes depends on which happening was landed on. If the left happening space was landed on, then he'll walk along the top half of the board and stop at the right happening space. If the right happening space was landed on, then he'll walk along the bottom half of the board and stop at the left happening space. This event lasts for 2 turns, after which all of the spaces Bowser changed will revert back to blue spaces. I have a love-hate relationship with this event. I hate how slow Bowser walks from one side of the board to the other. But there's something really funny about it. It's like he has zero respect for anyone's time but his own. I also love how he chuckles each time he stomps on someone. It's great. If you land on this happening, then you will lose 10 coins. Granted, you have at least that amount, because you'll be on the first space that Bowser walks on. It's for this reason that I'm not too keen on shooting for this happening space to boost your happening count. Actually, I'm not too keen on shooting for any of these happening spaces. The ones on the top left and top right sides of the board will activate Bowser's Tower of Chance, where he'll force the player to hit a red block or a blue block. One sends the player back to start, while the other takes half of the player's coins. Just like that clam happening event from Undersea Dream, there's no true choice to be made here. Both blocks are constantly flipping between cutting your coins in half and sending you back to start. It's a shame you can't tell which is which. If you're low on coins anyways, then maybe cutting your pocket change in half ain't a big deal, and sometimes going back to start can be a good thing. I'm trying to be optimistic here, can you tell? This isn't a happening space I'd like to land on, and luckily, the one on the left at least comes after a junction, meaning you can likely avoid it if you want. If you need to take this left path, then use a mushroom or super mushroom beforehand to save yourself the hassle. Unfortunately, the right happening space isn't after a junction, so you can't simply avoid it by picking a different path. Just like before, I recommend using a mushroom or super mushroom to zip past it. The happening space at the top of the board causes Bowser to appear and take control of a flamethrower cannon. Any players on the happening space or the 2 blue spaces on either side of it will lose all of their capsules. No, not the capsules! If there's one you're keen on keeping, then use a mushroom to... We're running into an issue with this board, huh? It's not like you can purchase mushrooms or anything. Honestly, there will be times where you've got to take a risk and hope you roll past a happening if you don't want to land on it. But I've got to say, this happening space is not that bad so long as you don't have an amazing capsule in your hands. You've got to get the happening star somehow. Well, I guess you can get it by the happening spaces in the middle of the board. If you land on the ones outside the circle, then you'll be taken into the circle, which Bowser calls the spin stage, where there are red spaces everywhere. This might not sound too bad at first glance, but remember how this game handles Bowser spaces? Yeah, there's a good chance that one of these red spaces was turned into a Bowser space at the beginning of the game, or by a Bowser capsule. Let me tune you in to a horrifying possibility. What if you were to enter the spin stage? After the final 5 turns rule, all red spaces become Bowser spaces, get selected. You'd be stuck in there with a low chance of escape anytime soon. At least you'll get another happening space added to your count when you leave, right? Yeah, I guess so, but from the games I've played and seen, people do not have a fun time in this part of the board. That's why you'd better hope you saved yourself a warp pipe or klepto capsule for this worst case scenario. Although, if you wanted to be eviler than the King Koopa himself, you could place a warp pipe capsule in this red ring of death and land on it to transport another player there. How devious! You might be wondering what happens if the all red spaces become Bowser spaces rule gets selected after Bowser's turned some blue spaces into red spaces. I tested to see, and as it turns out, the game will revert the red spaces back to blue spaces as soon as the first of the final 5 turns hits, even if 2 turns haven't passed yet. Guess they didn't want absolute chaos. Now that I look at them more closely, a couple of these paths are huge commitments. This one that brings you up the chain goes on for 35 spaces before reaching another junction. This one, although less extreme, is still 27 spaces until the next junction. You really need to consider which path you take at each junction, cause you might stick with one for a while. Place your capsules on the red carpet near the starting area to make them appear more regal. It's just an aesthetic thing. I've already touched on how important movement capsules are on this board, but don't count out Twister. With how long some of these paths are, you can really frustrate an opponent by making their decision amount to nothing. Overall, Bowser Nightmare is true to its name. This title has 74 minigames that all have a chance to pop up in party mode. There's 23 4-player minigames, 12 1v3 minigames, 12 2v2 minigames, 6 battle minigames, 15 duel minigames, 3 Bowser minigames, and 3 DK minigames. 4-player minigames. Chimp Chase. Catch the little Ukikis and return them to the same colored adult Ukiki. Whoever catches the most wins. If no one catches any, it's a draw. Multiple players can win. There are 4 colors of Ukiki: red, blue, brown, and silver, each positioned in one of the screen's corners. Shoot for Ukikis that are close to an adult of the same color. Sure, you may grab one quicker than your opponents, but if you have to walk across the field to score a point, then you're wasting valuable time. Always be on the lookout for the shortest path available to score your points. If one of the adult Ukiki screams out, the Ukikis of the same color freeze, giving you a chance to get them. A golden Ukiki is worth 3 points and can be returned to any adult Ukiki. The best part? One will always spawn in the middle of the battlefield when the timer is at 11. So grab it as soon as it appears and head for the closest adult Ukiki to claim your 3 points. This will usually net you the win since this golden Ukiki is the only one that'll spawn each game. Its predictability is something you must take advantage of. It'd be stupid not to. If an opponent nabs the golden Ukiki instead, then focus back on making quick points, preferably with Ukikis close to the main threat so they'll struggle in maintaining their lead. Chomp Romp. Guide the chain chomp to the finish line by calling it with the whistle. Whoever gets it across the goal first wins. If multiple players cross the goal at the same time, the winner is determined by port priority. When the player blows the whistle, the chain chomp starts moving towards them until it collides with something. If the player gets hit by the chain chomp, they'll get stunned for a moment. Let's take a look at the best route to walk your dog. First, blow the whistle at the middle part of this fence, then blow it at the middle part of this fence. This next part is what I like to call the swing skip. See, most players will blow the whistle at the top of the swing set and then at the bottom of the slide, but you want to blow the whistle when you're at the top left corner of the swing set. This will slide your chomper through in one clean swoop. But you've gotta nail the positioning. Align yourself by running up the left side of the swing set. Otherwise, you might move too far to the right, which will cause your dog to hit the swing set, or too far to the left, which will cause your pupper to hit the slide. After that, blow the whistle when you're in between these two fences, and finally blow it at the grassy finish line. When played like this, you will win, unless one of your opponents did the swing skip as well. If you know one of your opponents knows how to do it, then perform your whistles faster than them. If you're confident no one knows about it or how to do it properly, then take your time executing it correctly. The swing skip should only be attempted if you properly maneuvered your chomp the way I said at the beginning. If you didn't, then the skip will either be extremely precise at best or impossible at worst. So in that case, just play this section normally by blowing your whistle at the top of the swing set, then at the bottom of the slide. From here, you'll want to bring your toothy friend directly down, followed by directly to the right. And finally, a straight shot to the end. Avoid getting hit by your chain chomp or you'll suffer from lost time. This is totally cool when you blow your final whistle though, since, well, the minigame's over. Go give your good boy a hug, he deserves it. Coin cache. Collect coins by jumping into bricks. Careful, not all of the bricks give you coins. Whoever collects the most coins wins. 3 rows of brick blocks move from left to right. They can also be used as platforms to reach higher blocks. The 3 rows of blocks stop moving occasionally and start moving in the opposite direction a few seconds later. If players step off one side of the screen, they will appear on the other side. There are 3 types of blocks in this minigame. The first type is the usual brick block that contains nothing and is destroyed when hit. The second type contains a single coin and transforms into an empty block when hit. The third type contains 10 coins. It may be hit until it's empty, then turning into a used block. Players will often fall to lower levels due to holes opening up from destroyed blocks below. This causes a lot of competition at the lower levels, which you want to avoid. Instead, try and platform your way to the 3rd level where there's likely to be less players. Keep hitting blocks until you find a 10 coin one, then farm it until it has nothing left to give. Keep on the lookout for groups of blocks, and if you notice a player close to you found a 10 coin one, then try and take the coins for yourself. Observe which directions the blocks are moving and adapt accordingly. Sometimes there won't be a need for you to move, as the blocks will continually appear above your head. Jumping through a 1-block gap is difficult, so I recommend taking a split second to jump through a 2-block gap at least. This way you won't waste time. If you see a player hitting blocks below you, then move out of the way so they won't bring you to a lower level, unless of course there's more blocks to be had there. There's no need to jump over a 1-block gap. Running will do the trick. Walking won't though, so don't take it slow unless you want to drop to a lower level. Jumping on someone's head will slow them down, enough to the point where they need to jump over a 1-block gap unless they want to fall. Moving players is possible here too, making this minigame a whole bucket of chaos. Coney Island. Catch the falling scoops of ice cream. Whoever catches the most scoops wins. If no one catches any, it's a draw. Multiple players can win. The shadows on the ground show where scoops are going to land. Simply keep your cone above one to nail a scoop. You can't push your opponents and your opponents can't push you. So if you're on top of a shadow and someone's running at you, then don't worry, the scoop is yours. Moving will only hurt you. Stand your ground and wait until the scoop falls onto your cone. You could potentially psych someone out by running towards them, so long as they don't know that you can't actually push them. I instead recommend focusing on the shadows closest to you so you can rack up the most scoops. This becomes especially important as the minigame progresses, since you'll move slower the more ice cream scoops you have. Don't limp towards a shadow far away when you're this slow. Stick to the ones that you know you can get to as to not waste any time. The best position to take in order to reach the most amount of shadows is of course the middle of the field. Dinger Derby, swing the baseball bat and hit the pitches from the pitching machine. Whoever hits the most pitches wins. If no one hits any, it's a draw. Multiple players can win. The machine will pitch 30 times. There are 4 types of pitches: a standard pitch, a fastball, a slow ball, and a screwball, in which the machine actually pitches 2 balls at once. The player can only hit one of them though, so no scoring double points here. Learning the timing for each pitch is difficult. The screwball is the most obvious. You'll see the machine take a long time to charge up and even hesitate before it pitches at the end, cluing you in that the screwball is coming. If it takes a long time to wind up but not too long, then a fastball is on its way. If it winds up fast and throws early, then that's your slow ball. If there's nothing notable about the way it's winding up, that's your standard pitch. All players receive the same pitches, so there's no luck involved. This has nothing to do with gameplay, but did you know that you can hit a ball at one of the spectators? That's pretty good. Dodge bomb. Pick up and throw bombs at your opponents while avoiding the ones being thrown at you. The last one standing wins. If all players get blown up, then it's a draw. As time passes, more and more bombs emerge from the houses surrounding the area. A bomb will explode 2 seconds after it lights up red. This goes for when it's walking about and when a player is holding on to one, meaning that you could potentially blow yourself up if you're not careful. Or, if you're feeling devious, you could run towards a player with a bomb and blow both of you up. Their only option is to run from you, and that's hard to do since your run speeds are the same, even though you're holding a bomb. If someone wanted to help your target out, then what are they gonna do? Throw a bomb at you? Then they'll hit your target as well. What if your target throws a bomb at you? Well, the explosion will blow both you and them up. This means that if you manage to get close to another player with a bomb in hand, they're as good as doomed unless they manage to somehow outmaneuver you. If you're trying to win, then do not grab a bomb if you see your opponents have one in hand. The quickest way to lose is by getting stuck in your grab animation as an opponent decides to throw a bomb towards you. Wait until they don't have any bombs in hand or are currently throwing one somewhere else. When you have a bomb, don't throw it willy-nilly. Wait until an opponent's vulnerable, such as when they're in the middle of picking up a bomb or throwing one somewhere else. Look out for yourself too, since there may be someone targeting you at that moment. You may not have to get bloodthirsty at all. This minigame's survival based, not point based, meaning you can play defensively up until the end, where you shouldn't let your opponent capitalize on any openings. Watch out for stray bombs walking around, by the way. That'd be a funny loss. Fish sticks. Catch cheap cheeps as they nibble on fishing lines. When the pole dips, grab it. Whoever gets the most points wins. If no one hooks any, it's a draw. Multiple players can win. Red cheap cheeps are worth 1 point, whereas gold cheap cheeps are worth 2 points. The biggest mistake players make on this minigame is grabbing rods that aren't being nibbled on. This results in nothing being caught and wasted time. A rod has a cheap cheep at the end of it if you see the rod, mainly the tip, shaking up and down. Don't be fooled by this animation. It's simply the rod returning to its resting position after having been cast. It does not mean a cheap cheep is nibbling on it. Quite the opposite. If you see a fishing rod shaking up and down and then stop, don't bother with it, the cheap cheep left. You should only be checking rods with the shaking animation, nothing else. The visible cheap cheeps in the water below have nothing to do with the minigame. Ignore them. From what I can tell, there's no difference between the animations of a regular cheap cheep nibbling on a rod versus a golden cheap cheep nibbling on a rod. Do your best by looking out for shaking rods. There's no need to fish upon a star. Avoid the falling objects, the crumbling ground, and the other players. The last player standing wins. If all players fall off, then it's a draw. The players can punch or stomp on their opponents to push them off the platform or or slow them down, making them more vulnerable to the platform's hazards. Cheap Cheeps will randomly fall from the sky, often towards the edges of the current platform. Players hit by Cheap Cheeps are temporarily stunned and risk falling off as a result. This minigame's all about stage control. Try to stay in the middle of the biggest platform. Hanging around the edge will likely result in you getting launched into the stratosphere. If you see someone else near the edge, then give them a good jump kick to send them away. That's right, a jump kick. Unlike punches, you can move during them and there's less end lag, allowing you to get a hit in and quickly move back to a safer position. Being in the air will also help you avoid getting hit by punches, making the jump kick an awesome move. You do need to worry about landing on players' heads though, since that'll keep you in air and might throw off your positioning. If an opponent is spamming jump kicks, then you need to hit them with one before they hit you with one. Accomplish this by letting them perform their jump kick and retaliating after they've missed. If you see two players away from you fighting it out, then it might do your best to let them fight and then launch a surprise attack on the winner of the battle. It's entirely possible to lose this minigame by the environment. These Cheap Cheeps are annoying, but they are color-coded. The small blue variants will destroy one block of land, whereas the large red ones will remove several blocks of land. Avoid them at all costs. You can't run across most gaps. Jump over them. This isn't coin cash. Flower shower. Collect the flowers before they disappear. Whoever catches the most wins. If somehow no one catches any, it's a draw. Multiple players can win. A pink flower is worth 1 point, while a golden flower is worth 3 points. The grass will slow you down by a little bit, whereas the water will slow you down by a lot. If you have to cross these sections, then make sure you're jumping so you don't suffer a speed decrease. You should only be grounded during this minigame if you're running on concrete or collecting petals on the ground. Staying in the air will also defend you from getting jumped on, which will reduce your run speed and jump height, a punishment you want inflicted on other players, not yourself. You could prevent a threat from winning by constantly jumping on them, but you should focus on winning the minigame instead with better movement. If you see a clump of flowers or a gold flower close to other players, then don't bother trying to get them. You'll waste your time trying. Stick to the flowers you know you can get and rack up your points. Frozen Frenzy. Punch, kick, and ground pound your opponents to take crystals from them. Whoever has the most crystals at the end wins. If no one gets any, or if all players end with 1, then it's a draw. There are 5 crystals total. 4 are in each corner, and the other one is near the back center part of the cavern. The best route to take, if you're able to, is this crystal on the back left, followed by the one in the back center, and lastly the one on the right platform. Regardless if you successfully took this route or not, this platform is the best place to camp once you have more crystals than everybody else. They can't hit you. They need to take this moving platform for a chance at knocking you off your throne. If you see one of them trying this, then perform a jump kick before they do, or else you'll be toppled. If you see another player trying to get to this platform and they have more crystals than everyone else, then stop them at all costs. You could camp on this platform with only 2 crystals, chancing that you'll still have more than the others, or at the very least, tie your count with someone else, cause then you'll both win. Jump kicks, as shown in Fish Upon a Star, are better than punches, especially in an elevated arena like this one. Ground pounds, while good for stunning an opponent, are not necessary to make them lose a crystal. A simple jump will do. I wouldn't waste any time pounding ground. An icicle will fall from above at seconds 37, 29, 21, and 13. There are 4 locations for an icicle to fall. The order they fall in, however, is random. Touching one will result in losing a crystal. Steer clear of them. Ground pound down. Do ground pounds to break the blocks and move down. Whoever gets to the water first wins. If multiple players reach the end at the same time, the winner is chosen at random. There are 3 sections of blocks, each section having 3 columns of 9 blocks each. Each column has a different amount of soil blocks and rock blocks. Players must choose one column to ground pound until they arrive at the next section. While ground pounding through one column, it is impossible to switch to a different one. Don't bother. A high ground pound will get you through 3 soil blocks with ease. Spamming low ground pounds to get through them will just waste you time. Rock blocks must be hit 3 times to destroy them. Here is where spamming low ground pounds will work. A high ground pound, as high as it is, only counts as 1 hit, so don't waste your time using them on rock blocks. Switching between high and low ground pounds depending on the blocks below you is what'll bring you ahead of your opponents. When choosing between the 3 columns, always go with the one that has the most soil blocks so you'll save time. The final stretch will always contain either 3 rock blocks in a row or 2. This is where you should button mash so you reach the end first. Hotel Goomba. I see the problem. Too many Goombas. Reach the 3rd balcony of the hotel by punching the Goombas out of your way. Whoever reaches the 3rd balcony first wins. If multiple players reach the end at the same time, then the winner is chosen at random. The difficulty level increases as the player goes higher, since more Goombas appear and the puzzles get trickier. When the player punches a Goomba, it moves to the tile directly next to it, depending on the angle at which it was punched. The number of punches increases, as does the probabilities of getting stuck. If the player does get stuck, which means they punch the Goombas incorrectly and cannot move on, they can press Y to reset the room and try again. Here are the solutions for every puzzle that can appear on the first floor. The Goomba, or Goombas, have been arranged in such a way that no matter which puzzle you receive, it is impossible to get stuck. Simply punch them out of the way and move on. Here are the solutions for every puzzle that can appear on the second floor. Some Goombas in these puzzles don't need to be punched in order for you to complete them. Quickly observe the puzzle you got and the moves you'd like to make. If the pathway looks clear, then go for it and move on. Here are the solutions for every puzzle that can appear on the 3rd floor. Most players will screw up here and need to restart. Observe where all the Goombas are and the possible paths you like to take. There's nothing more damaging in this minigame than reaching the end just to blockade yourself. If you do make a critical error, immediately restart and try again. The game gives the same puzzles to every player, so if you're not confident in this minigame and know that one of your opponents is amazing at it, then copy their inputs. Once you're nearing the end, attempt to overthrow their lead by inputting your punches quicker than them. Oh, and by the way, you can't pause the game to cheat. The devs thought ahead. Hydrostars. Steer the boat through all of the gates in numerical order. Whoever reaches the finish line first wins. If players hit one of the crates floating in the water, they are stunned for a moment. This minigame's layout is the same every time, so listen up. For the first gate, make a sharp turn right. Careful to not let your opponent screw over your placement. For the second gate, make another sharp right turn and head straight for gate number 3, where, if you can help it, make a sharp left turn. It's alright if you need to go right instead due to the boxes. For the fourth gate, a sharp left or right turn will do. It depends on where the boxes are situated. For the fifth gate, always make a sharp turn right, because that's where the goal is. If you ever see boxes beside a gate, then you should probably accelerate past the gate a little bit before making your turn. Later skater, speed skate around the short track. Whoever completes 5 laps first wins. Keep your turns tight, but not so tight that you touch the inner lane marker, or else you'll slow down considerably. The same goes for the walls, but you shouldn't be so far out to begin with. These sharp turns are easier to do by tapping the analog stick over and over, making slight adjustments as you go along. Bumping into players when you're ahead of them is a decent strat, since not only will they boost you ahead, but your generous friend will also fall back. Focus more on making the turns though. These boosts should only come as a last resort. Leaf leap. Jump from leaf to climb the never-ending beanstalk. Whoever climbs the highest within the time limit wins. If no one decides to climb, it's a draw. Multiple players can win. If players jump to a leaf that isn't there, they will fall until they land back on the leaf below. Ah, a good old reaction minigame. See a leaf on your right? Jump to your right. See a leaf on your left? Jump to your left. And as you heard earlier, jumping to a leaf that ain't there will cause you to fall until you land on one. So if you encounter tons of leaves in a single direction, then screwing up will cost you big time. You might be saying, Zoomzyke, I have terrible reaction time. No tip in the world can help me win this minigame. Is that so? Introducing the Vine Sniper, a technique I whipped up for those of you that either know you're going to lose this minigame from the start, or realize you're about to lose near the end. First of all, let me remind you that the winner is whoever climbs the highest. There's no target height to shoot for. You simply need to climb higher than the other players, which means even being a single leaf above the second highest player will net you the win. Why does this matter? Because the leaf layout is the same for all players, meaning that if you keep your eyes on whoever's doing the best and copy their jumps, then you'll be right behind them throughout the whole minigame. The point in which you'd stop copying them is if they make a mistake, in which you'd pull ahead by making the correct jump, or when the timer's at around 2 seconds, in which you want to try and blitz ahead at the last moment for the win. When selecting whose inputs to copy, an intense CPU is your go-to, but if one isn't available and you aren't sure which person in your group is the best at this minigame, then begin playing like normal and watch for this windmill on everyone's screens. The lower it is, the better that player's doing because they're making more height, and the more likely that they're gonna be the winner. Try and catch up to where they are by either matching up your backgrounds or recognizing the leaf patterns and copy away. Of course, like with any cheeky little trick, it's not guaranteed. The person you decide to follow at the beginning who is doing great may start to suck, in which case you need to take matters into your own hands. If you're confident in your reaction time over your opponents, then there's no need to copy. Keep cool and go at a comfortable yet brisk pace. If you zoom while you're already far ahead, then you risk falling a great distance. Only speed up when you see someone gaining on you, which you can gauge by where the sun is on their screen compared to yours. The lower it is, the higher one is. Mazed and confused. Work your way to the star in the middle of the maze. Whoever gets there first wins. The electrical barriers will change whenever the timer counts down to an odd number. So, every 2 seconds. Touching an electric barrier will stun you for a moment, so prepare for when they're about to switch. I'd love to say that there's a massive secret to this minigame, but all these barriers seem to have a mind of their own. Sometimes you can come close to the end just for the game to not open a pathway for you to reach the goal. You've gotta adapt to new paths that open up and hope the game plays nice. Night Light Fright. Stop the chain chomp as close to you as possible without letting it attack you. Whoever stops it the closest wins. If all players get their butts bitten, it's a draw. Multiple players can win. Each chomp starts 30 yards away and moves at a different speed, so hitting the light at the same time as another player will not work. There is no distance counted if the player is hit by the chain chomp. With how random and sporadic these chomps are, my tips may not always result in a win, especially because sometimes the chomp likes to fake you out. Use this blue barrel on the left as measurement. If the chain chomp barely managed to knock it over, meaning it's a little further away, then wait for it to do one move and then flash your light as it does its second move. If the chain chomp knocked it over by a bit, meaning it's a little closer, then shine your light as it does its next move. There's a small possibility that the chain chomp will rush you even before it knocks down this left barrel. If it keeps going and doesn't stop, then shine your light before it hits you. If all of your opponents have already shined their lights and you're still going, then quickly gauge how close their chain chomp was to them and simply try to beat the closest one. Pop Star Piranhas. Find the one piranha plant that's dancing differently from the others. Whoever answers correctly the most times wins. If no one has any points by the end, it's a draw. Multiple players can win. You have 5 seconds to make your choice each round. Take your time to compare the piranha plant's movements to one another. Watch for how their leaves flutter, how much they break their necks, and the speed they're going at overall. Most of the time the answer's fairly obvious, but other times it'll be subtle, so keep a keen eye out for the smasher that's grooving to his own tune. Pushy Penguins. Avoid the Pushy Penguins as they march to the sea. The last player standing wins. If everyone falls off, it's a draw. Scan the ice cap for gaps to squeeze through, cause if you don't, then you'll end up getting trapped by the penguins and shoved into the water. It doesn't help that the penguins will speed up right before they march into the sea. Eventually, you'll start to see larger penguins, which take up much more space than the babies. Steer clear of these behemoths at all costs. You have better chance at finding gaps between smaller penguins than the larger ones. The best way to know if a gap's going to reveal itself is if one penguin is waddling faster than the one next to it. This difference in speed will cause there to be an opening, which you can take advantage of. If you see two penguins waddling side by side at the same speed, then don't count on an opening anytime soon. Move out of the way and look elsewhere. Don't be afraid to backpedal if it means ultimately saving yourself. Too often I'll see players constantly running right, eventually trapping themselves when they could have ran left for a split second to put themselves in a better position. If you're struggling, then look out for where other players are moving to survive. You may discover a gap quicker that way than finding one on your own. You can't push other players around though, so don't even try it. You can fall off the top and bottom part of the ice cap, by the way. Don't trip up there. Rumble Fumble. Find the shy guys hiding under the buckets. The first player to find 3 shy guys wins. If no one finds 3, it's a draw, even if one player has more points than the others. At the beginning of the minigame, a rumble pattern shakes the player's controllers. If the rumble setting is turned off, which makes this minigame easier by the way, an exclamation point pulses in a pattern. Players must then search the many colorful buckets on the stage to find the same rumble pattern. A pattern shakes the controller or appears on screen when a player approaches a bucket. If this pattern matches the first one, a fly guy is under the bucket and the player should lift it post-haste. If the player lifts a bucket that does not match the rumble pattern, a Ba-Bomb or Chain Chomp attacks the player, leaving him or her unable to move for a moment. Ba-Bombs destroy the bucket they're hiding under once uncovered, but Chain Chomps go back into hiding, attacking other players if they happen to choose that bucket again. The first person to get 3 fly guys is the winner. Sometimes buckets hold 2 fly guys, meaning it's possible to win with 4 fly guys. There is no indication if a bucket has 1 or 2 fly guys. You just need to get lucky. All the fly guys share a pattern, yes, but so do all the Chain Chomps and all the Ba-Bombs, meaning there are 3 distinct patterns per minigame. Memorize the first fly guy's pattern as best you can, especially the first couple pulses, cause most of the time, that's all you need to distinguish between the fly guy's pattern and the wrong ones. For example, this fly guy's pattern is pretty chill, right? So when I check a bucket, I immediately leave if the pattern I see is anything different than the chill one I saw earlier. And the moment I see a pattern that's chill at the beginning, I lift the bucket. There's no reason to wait a long time to make sure, because again, the patterns are distinct enough where you only need to wait a split second. Triple jump. Button mashers, my favorite. Use your athletic abilities to perform a triple jump. Whoever jumps the farthest wins. If no one hits a button, it's a draw. Multiple players can win. For the first jump, the players must press the A button rapidly so their character will float farther. Once their character touches the ground, the players must press the B button rapidly for the same effect. For the third jump, the players must press the A button rapidly once more. Make sure you switch which button you're mashing as soon as your character lands on the ground. Vicious Vending. Rotate the lever to get a capsule. Whatever comes out is a complete surprise and yours to keep. If you've ever thought that how fast you rotate the lever or when you rotate the lever actually affected what you got, then you'd be sadly mistaken. No matter what voodoo you do, the game will decide whether you've been naughty or nice. Let's hope it's the latter. Will Flower. Use the power of your mind to bring the flower back to health. First one to revive the flower wins. If players finish at the same time, the winner's chosen at random. I give this minigame an A for aesthetics since it always manages to make me laugh when I watch each character breathlessly gesturing towards their sunflower. Imagine walking to a room and seeing this. Oh yeah, button mash. 1v3 minigames. Beam Team. 3 players each ride in a UFO and fire tractor beams at the 4th player who's trying to escape capture. If 2 UFOs collide, they'll stop moving for a few moments. It's this feature that saves this minigame from being horrifyingly unbalanced. If you're the solo player, then take advantage of the team's drawback by weaving between them. If they aren't coordinated well enough, which they likely won't be, they'll end up stunning each other over and over again. Don't do this the whole time or they'll end up catching on. Run away every now and then, but don't do it in a straight line. Running and turning is more effective since it'll force your opponents to move multiple directions, making them more likely to bump into one another. Touching the rocks won't hurt you in any way, but they're annoying since you have to run around them. If you're one of the 3 players, then avoid acting as a hive mind. Stay separated and cover different parts of the arena to make it more difficult for the solo player to avoid you. For this minigame to be balanced for the solo player, you need to bump into your allies. So if you manage to avoid doing so, then your team should win. Big Top Drop. 1 player swings on the swing and drops balls on the other 3, who must dodge the balls while walking on a tightrope. They can also jump to maneuver around other players, but the jumper gets stunned after jumping for trying to attain balance. If you're the solo player, then alternate your throws between A and B. Doing just one will make it easy for your opponents to adapt, but constantly mixing it up will cause the balls to drop at difficult to dodge intervals. Your swing will lag above the ends of the tightrope while zooming past the middle of the tightrope, making it much easier to hit players on the sides than the middle. This is why if a player starts camping in the middle, that timing starts to become necessary on your part. If you're one of the 3 players, then it's likely you or one of your teammates will get out quickly because of how much space each of you takes up. If you can, try holding ground in the middle. This is where it's most difficult for the solo player to hit you. You could jump over a teammate, but more often than not, this will result in you getting out earlier than you would have if you had just stayed put. Curvy Curbs guide your one-wheeled cart and its trailer along the pathway. The first one to the finish wins. The curbs are narrow, and stopping one of the sides will stop them for a moment before they can move again. If any member of the team touches a wall, the entire team stops for a moment. The solo player must maneuver their cart on a slicker pathway, lessening the amount of control that the player has. The game will end in a draw if both sides pass the goal line at the same time. The harder to control bit for the solo player doesn't fully come into play until later on in the minigame. For the beginning, it's all about making some tight, reasonable turns. It's when you reach this section, which I will dub the Calamity Curb, that you've gotta be insanely precise. You need to start turning left by the time your wheel touches this line. Any later or earlier and you'll hit a wall. Not just that, but if you're too far to the right when you start your turn, you won't have enough room to turn left. I don't blame you if you mess up on this part. This is possibly the most pixel-perfect maneuver any Mario Party has ever asked of a player. If you manage to pull it off, then immediately turn right as soon as you pass this right wall. After that, the pathway is just as easy as the beginning section. If you're one of the 3 players, then you have the advantage of more control over your cart. Turn according to the path. You could even look off your teammates in front of you if you have any. Once you reach the Calamity Curb, breathe a sigh of relief as your smoother controls allow you to make this turn with more leverage. After that, the pathway is smooth sailing. The pathway is the same for both the solo player and the Team 03, leaving the controls as the only thing for the solo player to complain about. Fight cards attack your opponents by showing various attack signs. If the same signs are raised, the solo player wins. According to Pie Guy 314159, if all players play randomly with no coordination, the solo player has about a 65.47% chance of winning. I'd say these are your chances of beating a team of CPUs as the solo player. I wouldn't tout that win percentage against real players, cause after all, there are tons of shenanigans to employ here. The last input a player makes is the one that's counted, so if you're the solo player trying to keep an eye on one of your opponents to see what they went for, then don't get caught looking or they may switch it up last second. As the solo player, know thy enemy so you can mind game properly. Call out your own move beforehand. Pick the same sign multiple times in a row. Show them your controller as you hit a button just to switch at the last possible millisecond. There are many methods of deceit and trickery to choose from. In the event that one of your opponents starts button mashing, pay close attention to how they're mashing. If they're sliding their thumb back and forth across the 3 buttons, then that means they're hitting the A buttons 2 times more than the B and X button. The A button's also the largest one of the 3, so regardless of the button mashing method, it's more likely that A will be pressed over the other 2. If you're one of the 3 players, then hide your inputs from the solo player so they can't copy you. If you choose to button mash, then distribute your inputs evenly with your controller concealed from sight. If you really want to leave your pick up to chance, then don't press anything. The game will randomly decide a card for you. If you and at least one of your partners makes it to the final round, then communicate with one another and choose different signs. It doesn't matter if the solo player hears you at this stage of the game, since they can only knock one of you out. You could communicate with your teammate during earlier rounds, but you run the risk of the solo player catching on. Flatiator. One player rides a ball and tries to run over the other three. If you're running, try not to get squashed. Monty moles pop out from the dirt as time passes, stunning the team players if they walk over them. The solo player can remove the Monty moles on the field. If you're the solo player, then slowly move towards your opponents to see how they react and adjust accordingly. Rolling at full speed towards someone from far away will not only make your movements predictable, but you have a higher chance of removing the Monty moles, and they're your friends here. Pressure your opponents towards the Monty moles. This will reduce their movement options, increasing the odds that you'll catch them. If you're one of the 3 players, then spread out. There's nothing more tragic than the solo player decimating your team within seconds. If the solo player is attempting to trap you against the edge, then get out of there pronto. Just keep track of the Monty moles while you do. Wouldn't want them to screw you over. Heat stroke. One player tries to knock the other 3 off the blocks, while the other 3 must jump to avoid being knocked off. If you're the solo player, your best friend is the fake swing. This will psych out your opponents into jumping like fools, leaving them wide open for a real swing to knock them into the star below. You could also speak aloud to catch your opponents off guard, quickly shouting "now" as you fake swing in hopes that they'll fall for it. Another method is to talk normally, getting them focused on your words until you suddenly swing your hammer in the middle of your speech. If you're up against a difficult CPU, then lay on the fake swings until they jump, then swing for realsies. If you're one of the 3 players, do not try to react to the solo player's hammer. Instead, keep your eyes on your own character. The moment you see yourself get moved, jump to the next platform and repeat. Reacting to the sound of the platforms getting hit could work as well, but that may prove difficult if the people you're playing with are talking, so I'd stick to keeping laser focus on your own character. Watch out for potaboos, by the way. Mario Mechs. Fight in a battle arena setting using vehicles to fire back and forth. Whoever is first to destroy the opposition wins. There are 3 battle arenas: Parched Ruins, Dark City, and Star Hole. Each arena has different pillar layouts which block a few shots before disappearing. I wouldn't say these arenas are different enough to alter one's strategy. If the solo player presses A, they'll shoot a beam. If they press B, they'll fire a shockwave around them. The beam can be spammed multiple times, dealing chip damage at players. The shockwave, while not as strong, will push players away. If the solo player holds A and releases when the target icon starts flashing rapidly, then they'll release a more powerful beam, capable of pushing a player back and dealing multiple hits of damage. It can even hit multiple players if aimed well. If the solo player holds B and releases when the target icon's flashing rapidly, then they'll release a large shockwave. The solo player may also hold L or R and move around to strafe. The team of players cannot strafe, charge up a beam, or cause any shockwaves. They can shoot regular beams and dash if B is held and released when the dash icon pops up. Dashing will not deal any damage to the solo player. If you're the solo player, then the main move you should be using is the charged beam shot. I am not kidding when I say this move is busted. Simply charge up, and when you see your target icon flashing rapidly, not just flashing, but flashing rapidly, then release your shot at one of the 3 players. There's also a sound indicator when it's charging. You'll know it's ready when the sound reaches its highest pitch. But aren't they faster than me, you say? And you're right, but remember, the Team 03 can't strafe, and the only way they can damage you is with regular beams. What does this mean? That they have to be facing you to damage you, and if they're doing that, then they're an easy target, as long as you know where they're coming from. If you come face to face with one as they're moving towards you, then fire a charge beam their way and watch as they get launched back with massive damage dealt to their health bar. If one of them has a slither bit of health, then finish them off with a few regular shots. Using the regular shockwave can be good to get them off you and prepare for a charge shot. Never use the powered up shockwave. It doesn't deal nearly enough damage to be worth it. Position yourself near the perimeter of the arena so they can't flank you from every which way. If they catch on and start playing from afar, then approach them using the pillars as barriers. If you're one of the 3 players, then swarm the solo player from different directions. If they know how to do the charge shot, then do not engage if they're facing you. Dash around and attempt to flank them from the side. If you're stuck in a 1v1 with the behemoth and their health isn't close to 0, then do not engage unless they are terrible at this minigame. Stall out the timer by dashing around the arena. This will result in a draw, but hey, it's much better than a loss. Mathletes form a mathematical equation by hitting 3 dice blocks. How fun! The equation sets the number of coins for each player or team. No matter what side you're on, the blocks roll through their numbers too fast to be taken advantage of. The only part I like about this minigame is the host Goomba wearing the snazzy outfit. You go, dude. Quilt for speed. Guide a vehicle to the finish line. To move, stop the roulette wheel on the direction you need to go. When the player stops the arrow, his or her machine will move in the direction of the arrow. Along the way, there are obstacles such as blocks, plastic toys, and the like that players must go around. The solo player has a single arrow that moves his or her machine, while the team has 3 arrows that the machine takes as directions from left to right. If the path is blocked by an obstacle, or if the players are at the edge of the quilt, the machine will not move. The pattern is the same for every player. Up, right, left, and then it repeats. Regardless if you make a correct or incorrect input, you may not input the next direction in the cycle. For example, if you input up, then your roulette will not let you input right. You've gotta wait. If you're the solo player, then simply stop the roulette on the direction you need to go while avoiding obstacles in your path. You should only take it super quick if the team of 3 is in sync. That's when the minigame tilts in their favor. If you're one of the 3 players, then keep in mind that your machine will register the inputs of your team starting from the left player. So if something's in front of you and you need to avoid it to progress, then the left player should input a left or right arrow to get around it, with the other players inputting multiple up arrows to move further up. The problem here stems from misinputs, because if that left player doesn't input the correct direction, then everyone will be out of sync and you won't make any progress. If your left player is throwing or just cannot time the arrows and you're the middle player, then you could sidestep the obstacle yourself. Most of the time, you want to assume your left player makes the correct input and follow up on that. Revolving Fire. The single player tries to get the other 3 with a flame shooting gun or with lava waves. The other players try to dodge. The solo player can rotate the flames clockwise or counterclockwise. The lava wave can only be sent out if the ring of lava around the solo player's platform is flashing. Otherwise, ground pounding the platform will achieve nothing. There's also a sound indicator for when another lava wave is ready in addition to the flashing. What's kinda cheesy is that the solo player ground pounds in the introduction to the minigame, which resets the timer for another lava wave. Not sure if this was done on purpose, but either way, if you're the solo player, then do not waste time ground pounding at the start or any time the lava wave isn't ready. If it is ready and you want to send one out, then mash A to do a quick ground pound. This way your opponents won't have nearly as much time to prepare for the lava wave headed their direction. Combine this with spinning the flames every which way and your opponents will not have a fun time. If you're one of the 3 players, then adapt to which way the flames are rotating, taking care to stay in the middle as best you can. Prepare to jump over a lava wave once you see that it's charged. Other than jumping over the lava wave, you should also be jumping to avoid the flames. Make sure you don't fall into the lava at the edges too. You'll be slowly but surely sliding down there, so make small corrections in your movement. You cannot jump over the flames. Squared away. 3 players each climb into a giant cube and try to squish the 4th player who's trying to escape in a smaller cube. The solo player must avoid being crushed by the team players. The team players can cover 4 tiles with each roll, which is way more than the solo player, which is only 1 per roll. But to counter this disadvantage, the solo player moves much more quickly than the team players. If you're the solo player, then do not corner yourself. The quickest way solo players lose this minigame is by rolling to a corner, cowering from the 3 players, and getting squished on the perimeter of the board. You are fast, really fast. Stay outside of your opponent's reach and take advantage of openings they aren't covering. Don't be afraid to roll right past one of them if they're stuck in their rolling animation. They want to trap you. Remember that. Don't let them do it. If you're one of the 3 players, trap the solo player. They're faster than any one player on your team by a long shot. Coordinate with your team to cover lots of ground, not leaving many gaps for the solo player to use. If you can tell the solo player wants to get by you, then it may do you good to wait and not roll so they can't take advantage of your slow rolling animation. The best spot to trap them in is in the perimeters of the map, where they have less options to move. Tube it or lose it. One player rides a spike-lined inner tube down a slope while trying to pop the inner tubes of the other 3 players. The 3 members of the team each control an inner tube, which is faster and more maneuverable than the spiked machine. Along the way, rocks and tree stumps are encountered. The solo player can break these by colliding with them, but the team must maneuver around them. If you're the solo player, then do your best to corner your opponents. Going straight for them from far away normally isn't the best option since they have better maneuverability than you. Instead, close the gap between you and them, and then strike as you adapt to their movements. Jumps in the course, of which there are 3 of, will cause all players to maintain the speed and direction they're going during the entire jump. Take advantage of this by gauging how fast your opponents are going before a jump and which direction they're going. Then follow suit. It's likely you'll either pop them in the air or when you land. The rocks and tree stumps are no bother to you. Feel free to destroy them to get closer to your opponents. The final stretch is after the 3rd jump, where it's a straight shot to the goal without any rocks or tree stumps in the way. Your opponents may get a little eager to reach the finish line, so if they start accelerating towards it, then capitalize on their impatience. If you're one of the 3 players, then speed up and slow down to constantly run circles around the solo player. The main situation you want to avoid is getting stuck in a bad jump. Watch how the solo player is moving before one and make sure you aren't in the path while in the air. If they slowly ease up on you, then get to an open space as soon as possible. The closer they are to you, the less room you have to make an escape. 2v2 minigames. Banking coins. One player hits the vase to get the coins, while the other player collects them. The floor tilts depending on where both players are standing. One player on your team, as the minigame says, should be hitting the vase in the middle, while the other player should be collecting the coins. If you're both hitting the jar, then the coins are gonna bounce away with no one to collect them. If you're confident in your coin collecting skills, then put your teammate on jar duty. The angle the jar is hit from will determine where the coins will go. So if it's hit from the left, then it'll spill out coins to the right. Adapt to the way your partner hits the jar to maximize your coinage. If a coin bag worth 5 coins pops out, then grab it, but don't fall. If you do, then you'll have to wait for Lakitu to bring you back up before you can start playing again, and that lost time is worth more than 5 coins. Both teams will receive a coin bag at the same amount of hits, leaving no RNG, just skill in this minigame. Berry basket. Work with your partner to get as many fruits as possible. The team with the most points is the winner. Normal berries, the red ones, are worth 1 point. Gold berries are worth 3 points, and dark berries will temporarily stun a player who touches one. People seem to struggle a lot with this minigame, and I don't blame them. The depth perception here is painful. You'll be watching your partner hit a berry and think you're ready to catch it, just to realize it was further or closer to the camera than you thought. I want you to rethink how this minigame is played. If you're the one running around with the basket, do not look at the tree. Instead, keep your eyes glued to the ground and move towards shadows. This will eliminate the depth perception issue, letting you gather berries with ease. The only drawback to this strategy is when a dark berry falls. Hopefully you can see it falling out of the corner of your eye so you know to avoid it. Your teammate should be hitting berries around you so you can gather them quicker. If you're the one shooting, then aim your shots around your teammate and tell them to keep focus on moving their character towards the shadows. Play the minigame like this, and I'm sure you'll have a much better time. Bus buffer. Polish the roof of the bus completely. The team that clears its bus first wins. If the same percentage of the bus has been cleared off, it's a draw. The buffer will automatically move one direction until you tell it to move the other. It's as simple as pushing left when you want to swing left and right when you want to swing right. The number one scenario you want to avoid is having to go back to your starting position to clean up a few spots you missed. Leave that spot nice and clean before moving to the middle. This will likely be enough to win the minigame since players will often leave drops of paint at the start. Point out to your partner any paint that they may have missed. Clock stoppers. Push the hands of the clock to match the clock in the middle. The first team to do this 3 times or the most times at the end wins. If no team has more than the other by the end of the 5 rounds, it's a draw. Each hand will be moved at the same speed no matter where you push them from, or if 2 players are pushing one at once. You and your partner should be in charge of different hands, quickly moving them to match the middle clock. As the minigame is about to start, place yourself directly below the hour hand. This way you can quickly react to the middle clock's hour hand by pushing your hour hand by the tip. This strategy can be used for the whole minigame by constantly placing yourself at the tip of your hour hand, ready to push it one way or the other. Some players will push their hands before they've even seen the middle clock's layout. This is a risky move, since you might end up pushing your hand further away from the correct spot. I'd rather play it safe and react accordingly. If you need to push the minute hand from the other side, then jump over it. While this will induce significant end lag, it's better than running the length of the entire clock. If you need to push the minute hand past the hour hand, then do so at the tip, where the hour hand isn't long enough to get in the way. If you need to push the hour hand past the minute hand, then you need to push the minute hand from the opposite side, jump over it, and resume pushing the hour hand. A pain, I know. Defuse or lose. Slow the burning fuse by doing a ground pound directly on it. If a spark reaches King Babam, you lose. If both teams have a fuse or fuses that reach King Babam at the same time, it's a draw. There are 3 fuses which follow a set trail. A fuse will rekindle not too long after they've been extinguished, so the players must ground pound them again. Don't worry if 2 fuses overlap. One ground pound will put out both of them. You'll know when a fuse is about to rekindle once you see a puff of smoke flare up. This is when you should jump and ground pound as to not allow the fuse to make much distance. If one fuse of yours is much farther than the others, then one player on your team should be on it at all times. Remember, even a single fuse will set King Babam off. Don't assume you've put a fuse out just because you've ground pounded near it. I've seen people miss a fuse and move on, just to realize too late that the fuse has made tons of distance. Handy hoppers. Jump over the bar as many times as you can. One player rotates the lever to turn the bar, and the other player jumps. If no team scores more than the other, it's a draw. I like to imagine these are baby master hands and crazy hands from Smash Bros. The key to this minigame is for your team to go at a consistent, manageable speed. Whichever speed the player holding the lever is going, they should stick to it without suddenly speeding up or slowing down. That'll just make it harder for the player jumping. If they realize that they aren't going fast enough to win, or they're going too fast for their partner to keep up, then they should communicate that to them so their teammate knows to pick up the pace or slow down. The player jumping can perform a full hop or short hop. They should only be performing short hops when their teammate's going quick. Otherwise, they'll keep tripping over the bar. ID UFO. Find the panels that match the 2 UFOs. You and your teammate must do a ground pound on both panels at the same time. If no one scores more than the other, it's a draw. If you ground pound on the wrong panel, that panel will flash red. Once a team correctly matches their UFO pair flies away and a new UFO pair appears. The team that matches 5 UFO pairs before the other team wins and ends the game. Here's every UFO and the icon it matches to. They may not look exact, and that's because the perspective of the UFO's icons are straight on, whereas the UFOs themselves are seen slightly from above. Keep this discrepancy in mind while you're attempting to match them. If your partner's struggling to find a match, then help them out. Also make sure that your character isn't blocking an icon above you. That'd be an embarrassing way to waste time. The panel layout is the same each time this minigame is played, so if you want to memorize which UFO icon goes where, then feel free. Manic Mallets. Hit the switch with the hammer. The team that hits it the most times wins. If both teams hit the same amount, the giant hammer turns and slams down on both teams. I wish there were more unique minigame animations like this. It may look it, but you don't have to be in sync for you and your partner's hits to be registered. Simply button mash as you normally would, and your score will be added with your partner's. The giant hammer in the background will point to the team that has the lowest number of hits. Whether you're winning or losing, the game ain't over till it's over, so don't let the hammer psych you out. Mario Can. Open the can using the seesaw can opener. Alternate jumps on the seesaw to open the can. Start by telling your teammate you'll ground pound first. This will likely give you an advantage over your opponents, who might both ground pound at the beginning and end up out of sync. Jump as soon as your teammate hits their platform, then initiate a ground pound at the apex of your jump. Ground pounding low won't make nearly as much progress, so make sure you're high up there. If your teammate's struggling, then tell them to keep doing high ground pounds. Adapt to their timing until the end of the minigame. While the cans in the background do show your progress, it's best to not get distracted by them and instead focus on timing your ground pounds with your teammate. Panic Pinball. Control the pinball flippers with your teammate and try to get the most points. The team with the most points wins. If no team scores more than the other, it's a draw. There are many objects in the board that can be used to get points. The 3 bumpers at the top can be hit for 10, 50, or 100 points. Hitting the Goomba from above or below will set the slots in motion. Matching 3 in a row will give the team an extra 500, 1,000, or 2,000 points. Hitting the spring will award 200 points, as well as launch the ball toward the Bowser head in the middle, making a countdown from 5. Whichever team makes the Bowser head reach 0 will be awarded with many extra pinballs, which can be subsequently used to rack up big points. If at any point the team loses the ball, another one will be given after a few seconds. The only exception to this rule is if the team hits their ball into the other team's pinball board, in which case they must wait for the other team to lose one of their pinballs. The maximum time limit in this minigame is 60 seconds. Not like any of this matters though, because it's so chaotic it may as well be RNG. Whichever team is the first one to bring the Bowser head to 0 will win 99% of the time. This is because the extra pinballs they receive will only make it more likely for them to be the team to reduce the Bowser head to 0 again and get rewarded with what? More pinballs! Why? If you and your opponent were as good as tasked, then maybe there'd be a reason to not spam your flippers, but with how crazy this minigame is, I can only recommend you mash the A button so you'll always be ready to hit a ball once it approaches. Rumble ready. Be the first player to react to the rumble and catch the capsule. Catch 3 capsules first or end with the most capsules to win. If no team scores more than the other by the end of the 5 rounds, it's a draw. Only 2 players face each other at a time. They'll swap with their partner after each round. Prepare to press A as soon as you feel your controller vibrate. If rumble is turned off, which it probably should be, then prepare to press A as soon as you see an exclamation point above your character's head. Submarathon. Race your submarine to the finish line. One player uses the lever while the other rests. Whoever finishes first wins. If both players reach the finish at the same time, the winner is determined by port priority. If both players on the team press Y, then they'll switch. This is to let one player rest from all their mashing. While this sounds nice, it takes a while for the characters to switch, so it's best for the first player to try and make a straight shot to the end all on their own. If this isn't feasible for the first player, then switching may be necessary, since slowing down out of exhaustion is worse than letting an animation play. Oh, did you know that if the resting player presses A, they'll blink the eyes and move the lips of the submarine? Since it contributes nothing gameplay-wise, it's officially the most useless button in a Mario Party minigame. Battle minigames. If all players draw, then that means they all come in first place. If you didn't put as many coins into the pot as others, then an all-player draw will leave you feeling nice. Players can also draw at lower placings. Astro-Logical, one of my favorites. Watch for the card that appears in the mirror, then find that card on the game board. The picture will start out distorted, but gradually become clear. However, there is one less symbol than there are players, so players must be quick. If all players except for one find a symbol, the remaining player is eliminated. Players are also eliminated if they fail to find a symbol within a 10-second time limit. The last player standing is declared the winner. If at any time none of the remaining players find a symbol within the time limit, they'll draw with one another. What if I told you that you could recognize which symbol is on the mirror from the start? It's possible. The game actually shows the symbol for a few frames before it begins distorting it. And even then, the beginning distortion for most symbols isn't enough to obscure which symbol it is. If you focus really hard on when the image first appears, I believe you can nail it down quick. If you see a symbol that could be either Virgo or Scorpio, then test out both. Waiting until the picture's done distorting will just waste time. I admit I couldn't recognize the symbols until I tried out this strategy multiple times in a row. That's to be expected though, right? Once you see a set of shapes enough, it'll become easier to recognize them within a short period of time. If you have no clue what image flashed at the beginning, then try out multiple symbols at random. You might end up securing a spot through sheer luck. If you go for this, then try aiming for a symbol that there aren't many of. Remember, there is one less symbol than there are players. If you select one that there's tons of, then you won't be right. The 1v1 should be rather easy. because you'll see a wave of the same symbols and a few lone symbols, one of them being the right one. All that being said, you should get a feel for what each zodiac sign looks like so you can instantly recognize the symbol the mirror shows at the very beginning without having to wait. And hey, you'll learn each of the zodiac symbols as a bonus. Ain't that neat? Bill blasters. Fire bullet bills at opponents. Your platform briefly stops when your shot is fired. The last one standing is the winner. If multiple players get out at the same time, they'll draw with one another. Because the platform rotates constantly, players must time each shot so that they hit the intended opponent. When a player is hit, that player's platform rotates slower, making it easier to aim. When the player is shooting, the platform stops spinning for a moment, but the player cannot shoot again for several seconds. If two bullet bills collide with one another, they both explode in mid-flight. Each player can take 3 hits until they are eliminated. You cannot shoot after you've been hit. You gotta wait until your character is done flashing. If you shot a bullet bill, you must wait until one is reloaded before you can shoot again. You'll know you're good to go when the flap at the back of your cannon is closed. Firing your bullet bill is instantaneous upon your input, so the moment you're lined up with your target, press A. The most difficult opponent to hit will likely be the one diagonal from you, so unless they're the biggest threat in the game, target the players adjacent to you first. Lucky lineup. Try to get the highest score using the slot wheels. Scores are calculated horizontally, vertically, and diagonally. If multiple players receive the same score, they'll draw with one another. 3 sevens are worth 50 points, 3 cherries are worth 10 points, and 3 shells are worth 5 points. The star in the middle is a wild card. Make sure you stop all 8 slots before the timer runs out, or else you'll have empty slots worth nothing. These slots are way too fast to time, it's hopeless. They even give you a random layout at the beginning, so spamming A will result in different outcomes each time this minigame is played. It really is true to its name. Now, let's figure out if the same goes for Random Ride. Select the machine you think will reach the finish line. Use the names as best as you can to predict the winner. A cool dude named Sponge Yoshi did some testing for this minigame and came back with some data on the win rates for each name. As it turns out, when the game said any machine with a positive name has a better chance at winning the race than a machine with a negative name, it wasn't kidding. For the longest time, I and many others treated this in-game tip as some kind of misdirection, but nope, the names do matter. You might be thinking, but Perfect Conditions only has a 50% chance of getting first. Those odds aren't amazing. But you must keep in mind that you're competing against 3 other players. A 50% chance of getting first in that setup is great. You've also got to keep in mind that when it doesn't get first, it'll get second 41% of the time. That's a 91% chance of getting either first or second. Those are pretty sick odds. On the disaster side of things, don't choose fate's decision. We clear? Good. If you're choosing first and see perfect conditions available on the screen, then that's your pick. What pops up on the screen though is randomized from game to game, so having a good idea of which names are better than others will assist you in your decision. When playing in party mode, the player in last place picks their machine first, with the player in first place picking last. If you're the one in last place when this minigame pops up as an option, then try convincing the other players to choose it, either by supporting the fact that it's luck-based, or by mentioning how fun it is, or by talking trash on the other minigames. I'd better not see you do that to Astro-Logical though. Tug-o-Dorrie. Pull your opponents off of their platforms by tugging on a rope. The last player remaining on his or her platform wins. If the timer runs out, it's a draw between the remaining players. This may feel like a button masher with a twist, but it really ain't. The biggest difference is that when a player falls, there's a brief moment where no one can make any inputs. The game suggests resting during this time, but the break is way too brief to consider that, so keep mashing until the end. Twisting out, stay in the eye of the tornado and don't get knocked outside. The last one standing wins. If multiple players get sucked by the tornado at the same time, they'll draw with one another. The tornado also slowly gets bigger as time passes. The direction you send players with the swing depends on which part of the hammer they get hit by. Think of it like baseball. With this, you can actually backhand someone into the tornado, but I find it to be a little unreliable. At the start of this minigame, push forth and smack your opponents willy-nilly. If one of them is stuck at the edge of the arena and it's safe to hit them out, then go for it. If you get hit at any point, know that you have about 1 second of invincibility frames. Use them to make your way back to the middle of the arena and get a free hit in if you can. This is especially important when the tornado starts closing in, since a single hit can be fatal. But if you play your cards right with your invincibility, you can turn the tides pretty quick. If you notice another player is trying to use their invincibility frames for a free hit on ya, then move slightly out of range of their hammer attack and strike back. Duel minigames. Blown away. Knock your opponent off of the cloud with an air blast bazooka. If both players fall off, it's a draw. Players can also make a bigger blast by holding the button. The bigger the blast, the farther the player on the receiving end flies back when hit. The player who knocks their opponent off the cloud wins. If neither player has been knocked off the cloud within the time limit, the minigame is a draw. Don't bother charging your bazooka while you're hit and on the ground. Nothing will happen. You need to be up in order for that sucker to charge up. Hit your opponent with a small blast and use their time being stunned to charge up an even bigger blast to hit them with. If they have a big blast charged up while you don't have much, then immediately start blasting them with air. No matter how small your blasts are, they will collide with a big blast from your opponent, causing an explosion that will knock away whoever's close to it. This means it's entirely possible to knock your opponent off the cloud with their own blast, granted you cause a collision close to them. The same goes for you though. If you're planning on hitting your opponent with a big one, then don't let it backfire by hitting one of your opponent's blasts close to you. If you're close to the edge, then use your invincibility frames to make it back to the middle. If you don't have any invincibility frames, then blast your opponent with small puffs of air to buy time. Bound of music. Jump around the cloud and try to find as many invisible blocks with a musical note on them as you can. If both players get nothing, it's a draw and they'll fall through the clouds. If both players have the same amount above 0, they'll do a regular draw animation. There are 20 jump blocks. Additionally, brick blocks are hidden among the jump blocks. Hitting one accomplishes nothing. The blocks will periodically glisten every 5 seconds, giving the players a general idea of where they are. The first time they'll glisten is right before the minigame starts. Get a grasp of where the bulk of them are, and head there as soon as you can. The biggest mistake players make of this minigame is jumping around randomly. Instead, find a jump block and then move in a straight line while jumping. All the blocks spawned in rows, so it only makes sense that if you jump in a row, that you'll hit more jump blocks. You'll eventually see more glistening, which will reveal where the rest of the blocks are. Make your way to the bulk and resume jumping in a straight line. Obviously, don't jump around in spots that you know don't contain any blocks. Button mashers. Ironically, my favorite button masher. Don't let the blocks crush you. Repeatedly press each button shown on each block to keep from being crushed. Both players can get squished at the same time, resulting in a draw. You must be pressing these buttons simultaneously. If you don't, then you're wasting your efforts. Treat this minigame as an endurance button masher. If you go all out on the first block, then you are going to suffer when more get piled on. Hit it at a brisk but manageable pace. When the second button comes in, things should still be rather easy. Hit them fairly quick, but not so quick that you pass out. You may start having trouble when the third button comes in, and that's when we need to talk strategy. This minigame will cap players off at 6 blocks, the buttons being A, B, X, Y, L, and R. Let your right thumb hit A, X, and Y. It can handle it. Subject your right index finger to the R trigger, your left index finger to the L trigger, and finally, stretch your left thumb all the way over to the B button. Although not the most comfortable hand position, it'll get the job done. Just make sure you're hitting all the buttons simultaneously. Count down pound. Do a ground pound to stop the timer as close to 0 as you can. Whoever stops the timer closest to 0 wins. If a player fails to ground pound before their timer hits 0, the timer will cross out, causing that player to lose the minigame. If the other player stopped their timer before 0. It's possible to end in a draw if both players fail to stop their timer before 0, or if both players stop their timer at the exact same time. The most consistent method of attaining the lowest time is through this pump. When the minigame starts, count each pulse that enters your balloon. The moment the 11th pulse goes in, mash A and you'll perform a quick ground pound, keeping your timer barely above the 0 mark. Get a rope. Select one of 3 ropes to pull. The results are completely random. This is a completely luck-based minigame. You'd think that if you were gonna rip away agency from the players that you'd at least do it in a fun way, but nah, pull a rope and hope for the best. What are they even attached to anyways? Head waiter. Oh boy. Pass the mini Bowser bomb back and forth until it explodes. Try not to be the one holding it when it goes off. The timer on the bomb starts at 9. Players may count down either by 1 or 2 numbers in an effort to avoid being the one to decrease the counter to 0, which will cause that player to lose. A player will also lose if they make no inputs within the 5-second timer. The numbers displayed will change to question marks after the second input. That turns this into a guessing game, but no worries, let's go over all the possibilities player 1 may encounter on their second move and try to help them win. Player 1 inputs a 1, player 2 inputs a 1. This brings the timer to 7. Player 1 should input a 2, bringing the timer to 5, unbeknownst to player 2, who is likely to input a 2 as well. Why? Because the last number they saw was 7, a pretty high number, making it likely that they'll feel comfortable enough to bring the timer down by 2 numbers. This is exactly what player 1 wants, since now all they have to do is input a 2 themselves and they'll win. Player 1 inputs a 1, player 2 inputs a 2. This brings the timer to 6. Player 1 should input a 2, bringing the timer to 4, unbeknownst to player 2, who is likely to input a 2 as well. Why? For a different reason this time around. Player 1's first input was 1, and player 2 responded with a 2. This may indicate more aggression on player 2's part instead of the usual playfulness that comes with matching numbers. If they did input a 2, then all player 1 needs to do to win is input a 1. Player 1 inputs a 2, player 2 inputs a 1. This brings the timer to 6. Player 1 should input a 2, bringing the timer to 4, unbeknownst to player 2, who is likely to input a 1. Why? For a similar reason to the previous scenario. They didn't match player 1's input, so they're probably doing their own thing and playing passively, which will leave player 1 with the timer at 3. All player 1 needs to do to win is input a 2. Player 1 inputs a 2, player 2 inputs a 2. This brings the timer to 5, where player 1 has 2 options. The first is to play aggressively by inputting a 2. This will bring the timer to 3, unbeknownst to player 2. What player 1 is hoping for is that player 2 will get scared and input a 1, in which player 1 would respond with a 1 and win. If player 1 instead plays passively by inputting a 1, this will bring the timer to 4, which means that the likely response of player 2 playing it safe will instead result in player 1's doom. But why is player 2 more likely to play it safe, you ask? The last number they saw was 5, which is low, not to mention they just received the bomb from their opponent who put in another input. It's likely that player 2 will get anxious about all this and input a 1 out of fear. If you're player 2, then input a 1 if the timer was last at 7 or 6, and a 2 when the timer is at 5. After that, go ahead and flip a coin. You don't have the same advantage player 1 has of knowing what the third move is. If you know your opponent's watched this video and is likely to do what I said, then input the exact opposite of what I predicted player 2 would do. But now if they're going off the video, then they'll do the opposite and oh god, this minigame, man. What's funny is that the timer makes a bunch of weird noises, the question marks will roll like a roulette at times, and the camera might suddenly zoom into the bomb for no reason. This only complicates matters more because you can't be sure if these random events may have affected what number your opponent will choose or not. I give myself a 60% win rate for this minigame at best. Mary Poppings. Pop all of your opponent's balloons with a blowgun before he or she pops all of yours. If both players input the last balloon pop at the same time, the winner's chosen at random. To shoot their blowgun, the players must press A and B simultaneously, aka at the same time. This renders certain button mashing strategies, such as sliding, which is what I do, ineffective. It doesn't matter how fast you're mashing one of the 2 buttons, only both of them together. For this reason, I've seen people who are otherwise great button mashers lose this minigame for not focusing on simultaneous input. Don't let that be you. Peace out. Completely fill in the space by taking pieces from the conveyor belt and placing them onto the field. If both players end with the same amount of points, it's a draw. The type of pieces are single blocks, double blocks, triple blocks, quadruple blocks in line form or rectangle form, and double triple blocks. Once the field is completely filled, the pieces will disappear, giving the player more chances to fill the space and get more points. Points are based on the size of the area of the same colored blocks and are not awarded until the space is filled. Filling all the blocks in one color awards 13,500 points. That detail might surprise you, but honestly, waiting until a certain colored block comes around in order to fill your whole field with that color is not worth it, mainly because it awards you points for what percentage of colors are the same. It's not an all or nothing deal. This means you should be focusing on filling as much space as possible with as similar colors as possible. If you have more of one color on your field and you have to choose between two of the same size blocks, then grab the one that matches your most dominant color. Don't let your opponent grab the double triple blocks. These ones are bulky and fill up tons of space. Press A before they do. When filling up your field, try to arrange everything in neat shapes. Making awkward holes and jagged edges will force you to wait for smaller blocks, which will just waste time. If time's running out, you're ahead, and are nowhere close to completing a field, then consider grabbing pieces off the conveyor belt that your opponent needs so they can't finish their field. Pound Peril. Find the one switch of the 12 that will not inflict any harm. The other 11 are hidden surprises of pain and misery. What? Did I read that right? Or are you telling me that text got approved? No one snuck into the database room one night, quickly typed that up and left? Crazy, dude. If both players can't find the winning button, it's a draw. I wish I had more to say about this minigame, but alas, it really is a torture room full of hidden surprises of pain and misery. There's only one winning button. You can stun another player by punching, jump kicking, or ground pounding them, but I'd rather spend my time trying out buttons as quickly as possible, which you can do by ground pounding low to the ground. Keep track of the buttons your opponents press so you know which ones are duds. Obviously keep track of which buttons you've pressed too so you don't go for any repeats. This might give you an idea of hitting buttons at random instead of in order to make it more difficult for your opponents to keep track of what you've pressed. While this is clever in theory, hitting buttons close to one another will save you much more time compared to running longer distances for a chance at tripping up your opponent. If your foe does hit buttons at random, then pay a lot of attention to which ones those are. It's easy to lose focus and lose time by pressing one that's already been proven to be a dud. Pump and jump. Build up the most pressure in the platform to jump the highest. Whoever jumps the highest wins. If neither player pumps, then the pump will disappear. They'll both jump to the ground and perform a draw animation. If both players pump the same amount, the winner is chosen at random. The squatting positions that the characters hold make this one of the funniest button mashers ever. Pump and pump till you can't pump no more. Shock absorbers. Avoid the amps and don't let yourself get shocked by the electricity flowing between them. Whoever lasts the longest wins. If both players somehow hit an amp at the same time, the winner is chosen at random. The amps will fly around and ricochet off of each other and the walls. They will periodically shoot deadly bolts between themselves, which must be avoided. This attack can be detected early by watching which amps stop and glow. New amps will fade into the field as time goes on. This minigame is heart-pounding. Avoid the middle of the arena, that's where most of the amps will go, and where you'll have to watch for yourself at all angles. Hug the wall instead, where you won't have to worry about getting zapped from nearly as many angles. Don't literally hug the wall, by the way. Simply stick around the blue line and you should be good. You can slightly move your opponent, but it is not worth it at all. Worry about yourself first and foremost. Shy Guy Showdown. Press the button on the sign that the Shy Guy holds up. Whoever presses the correct button first wins. If both players press the button at the same time, the winner's chosen at random. Sometimes the Shy Guy raises a fake sign, such as an exclamation mark sign, M sign, or stop sign. The player should not do anything in this case, or else the ink ball explodes inside the gun, staining them and making them lose. If the player presses the wrong button on a legitimate sign, or if the player presses any button too early, the same result happens. The possible legitimate buttons the Shy Guy can raise are A, B, X, Y, L, and R. Keep your eyes glued to a little above and to the left of Shy Guy. No matter which sign he holds up, it will always be displayed here in the same spot. Hold your L and R triggers down, but don't click them. The click is what the game is going to register. By holding the triggers down just before the click, you reduce the distance ever so slightly that your fingers have to travel to click either button, and that can mean the difference between winning and losing. Don't try and predict when Shy Guy will hold up a legitimate button. He might do it instantly or fake you out as many as 3 times before doing the real deal. Trust in your reaction time. Sky Survivor. Avoid the obstacles flying at you while riding on unique flying machines. The first player to deplete all of their HP is the loser. If both players reach the end with the same amount of HP, then it's a draw. The HP is represented by a small heart-shaped figure. When the player is hit, this heart loses some of its color off the top of it. Once one of the players is hit 5 times, the player's HP is depleted and they lose. If both players manage to reach the end, indicated by a sky gate, then the player with the most HP remaining wins. Quick warning, the vertical controls are inverted. Don't forget, play on the perimeters of the screen. This will let you react to the red spiny balls much more easily. If you were to play in the middle, then you'd be covering up where most of the red spiny balls are coming from, leaving you completely vulnerable. You might be thinking, oh, but if I cover it up for me, then I'll be covering it up for my opponent too, right? Yeah, but I don't see this strategy pan out well often. Normally the player in the middle receives a barrage of red spiny balls and loses early. Stick to the perimeter and you should be just fine. Whomp Maze. Find your way to the goal, but don't forget about the whomps hiding beneath the floor. If both players reach the end at the same time, the winner's chosen at random. They'll pop out when you get too close. If you bump into one, you'll get stunned for a brief moment. Here are all the variations for this minigame. I expect you to memorize each one and be able to decipher which variation you're on during the minigame. No, I don't. It is possible, but I don't. For more realistic tips, you should know that there's only one opening to reach the end. The other 2 spots will be blocked off by thwomps. If you're nearing the end and come across 2 blocked off spots, then you'll know for sure where the opening is. The arena only stretches so far up and down. If a thwomp pops up here or down here, then you can't get past either one by going up or down respectively. You've got to try a different path. If you notice your opponent's making great progress, then follow them. With your knowledge about how the opening at the end works, you'll likely be able to overtake them. Heck, if you want to follow your opponent from the beginning, then feel free. Let's just hope they don't beeline it at the end and win. That's when you've got to make your move. Wind waivers. Escape from Twister by jumping on the clouds and using a fan to get away. If both players get sucked in at the same time, it's a draw. You must be alternating the clicks of your L and R triggers for the input to count. Otherwise, you're wasting precious time and energy. The Twister sucking power gets increasingly stronger as time runs out, but you should be mashing as fast as possible anyways. Bowser minigames. Caging Cookin. Press the buttons as they appear on the cage to escape. Get out of your cage before Bowser cooks you. Pressing the wrong button will prevent action for a brief time. Don't rush it. You have more time than you think. Rushing to press buttons as quickly as possible will result in you making mistakes. React at a brisk pace and you'll get out just fine. Rain of Fire. Avoid the burning bits of Bowser's fireworks that are raining down. This is easily accomplished by not standing on top of a shadow. If you do, then your butt's gonna burn crispy. Don't get overconfident after the debris landed, since it'll take a second to disappear, and if you touch it during that second, you'll lose as well. This minigame's a breeze if no one's trying to screw each other over. But of course, that may not always be the case. Running into a player will cause you to move them around. If you want to be mean, then push players into shadows or the debris itself after it's landed. Caution is advised, for you yourself may get burned for your actions, whether in-game or in real life. Scaldin Cauldron. Select one of the 3 cauldrons to hide in. If Bowser breathes on the cauldron you're in, you lose. A luck-based Bowser minigame. Cruel, ain't it? If you're afraid of the biggest threat of the game winning and you losing, then hop into the same cauldron as them. Either you'll both win or both lose. If a player makes no input by the time the timer hits 0, then a random cauldron for them will be selected. Hope you're not on Bowser's menu as he decides which cauldron to fry. He can even fake you out. It's so mean, but so funny. DK minigames. In every one, small bananas are worth 1 point, whereas large bananas are worth 5 points. Banana Punch. Break the barrels and collect as many bananas as you can. There are 4 layouts the barrels can be arranged in. The letters DK, multiple plus signs, a diamond, and a house. Regardless of the layout, immediately punch the barrels closest to you. If an opponent's coming into your territory, then don't be afraid to give him a wallop to send him back. It may be tempting to fight for the middle barrels, but since every barrel has an equal chance of containing either small bananas or large bananas, you should stick to the barrels you know you can get. Divine Climb. Collect as many bananas as you can while climbing the vine. If you touch a spider, you will freeze temporarily. Climb upwards, hitting your L and R triggers to move left or right to avoid spiders. If you see a bunch of bananas, then grab them. 5 points is no joke. If one of your opponents didn't go for one of the banana bunches close to them, then take it for yourself. Mass Appeal. Collect as many bananas as you can, but avoid the banana peels. As the minigame starts, glue your eyes to the perimeters of the arena. This is where all the large bananas are. Carefully make your way to one, avoiding the banana peels. If you see another bunch that hasn't been claimed yet and there's an opportunity for it to be yours, then go for it. Players often slip in this minigame, so there's a good chance you can escape with 2 bunches or more if you're lucky. This was my first Mario Party game. Back then, it struck me as something magical. The boards were beautiful, and I couldn't take my eyes off of the main menu, containing these adorable star characters, which I soon found out was a reference to a different game that I began cherishing as well. It's only when I looked back on Mario Party 5 with a more critical eye that I started to see its flaws. The random item system, the simplified boards, the low variety in board spaces. These were all knocks against the game that I just didn't see when I was younger. I wonder why that is. Was I too young to notice these flaws? I lean towards yes, but it's hard to say for sure since I normally have a gut feeling affirming my answer. Maybe it's because, despite its differences, Mario Party 5 managed to make its flaws enjoyable in some way. The simplified boards and low variety in board spaces are countered by being able to place capsules wherever you want, ironically making some games I've played in this title have more variety in board events than the games I've played in previous titles. Party mode aside, this title added a lot of extra modes to play, which I'd argue set the trend for Mario parties following this one to have an abundance of extra modes. I mean, it's got Card Party, what else could you ask for? Despite its faults, I truly appreciate this game, both for its design and for introducing me to a series that always manages to bring a smile to my face. Thanks for watching. See you next time when we cover Mario Party 6.